All right. Hey, James Graham. Welcome to the popcorn space, the area for free thought and ideas. Say whatever comes to your mind and try your best not to be offensive. How you doing today, James?
Oh wait, okay. Is that your slogan, or is that just you're giving me advice on what to do?
That's like kind of my intro
Okay.
into the whole thing.
Okay, I just thought you were saying to me personally, don't be offensive.
Don't be offensive ever in life is what I mean to say to you.
So it means to not live effectively.
Right. No, well, I mean, I say try your best not to be offensive, which I think should be. Okay, well, if you really want to get into this conversation, I mean, I think that probably should be a goal to an extent. Like, I don't think you should ever try to be offensive, I guess. You should never try to be offensive. But, I mean, Jordan Peterson says in order to think, you have to risk being offensive,
Mm-hmm.
which I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Because that we should never prioritize not being offended over thinking.
Yeah.
But I don't think, I mean, there are people out there who I think sometimes try to offend on purpose because they're
Right.
provocateurs.
And that's what I was going to say. I was going to say, you know, if someone's their only intent is to be offensive, to offend people, then that's wrong.
Right.
But if you're actually standing up for something, it's always going to offend. It's always going to offend somebody.
Right.
But yeah, no, I agree with that.
I think you should know that probably no one is going to watch this live.
Yeah.
Because the Super Bowl is either going on or about to be going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking that myself actually.
When does the Super Bowl go on?
Me and you're in the same boat because I actually have no interest
Yeah.
in the Super Bowl. I think it's the Rams. No, the Chargers. No, the Patriots.
I think the Patriots sounds right.
The Patriots versus the Rams.
Right?
Yeah, I think so. So actually, so we're not into sports. We're into.
I could say things that weren't even like teams.
Yeah.
I'd be like the toilets versus the.
Patriots versus the Jackalopes.
I didn't even turn the lights on. I got all the lights set up,
Well,
and I
go ahead and do it. I'll give commentary.
just
on
stall for a minute.
Yeah, I will totally do that while you get those lights on. But
I'm so unprofessional. Here we go.
yeah, but no, seriously, I can speak for Jackson myself. We're not really sports fanatics. I don't even think if we were on a meter, we wouldn't even show up in the lower numbers. So I mean, that's how little we care about sports. But when it comes to movies or anything production, we're probably all in. But
We are
not
all
really
in
sports.
with productions, unless it's what did you say, My Little Pony?
Yeah, live action My Little Pony movie.
What'd you say about it?
No, I was just trying to make up something. No, I hope that's not true. I think they are making a My Little Pony, but
You're on IMDb right now.
no, I made that. I actually was just making up movies.
You made up the fact that you're on IMDb.
No. People who are listening. If you don't know what we're talking about, we were trying to do audio tests. I was making up fake news about fake movies, and apparently I sounded so believable that Jackson thought it was real.
I thought you said something about some $1 million My Little Pony movie.
Well, it probably would cost more than $1 million to do My Little Pony, actually. But I'm going to IMDb to see if it's actually going on. My Little Pony movie. But yeah, I don't think anybody will be watching this show maybe afterwards.
Maybe, hopefully, some people who don't like football.
Yeah. Actually, there was a My Little Pony movie that came out in 2017. I think that was supposed to be kind of big.
What's the Rotten Tomatoes score on that?
Well, it has a 39 Metascore, but the audience rating is a 6.1.
Okay.
So, hey, it might be worth checking out.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. I hope I never see that movie. It looks really bad. Just looking at the pictures of it, it looks really intense.
Okay, I believe I've shared it on your page now.
Okay.
Oh man, we're so like disproportionate. I'm like not feeling this at all. Here, I'm gonna move this where it's better. Some way over here, chilling in this area. Okay, so I have some questions for you.
Oh, yeah, sure.
To start with, so we're not just rambling forever. But my first question is, what is your official title as a filmmaker / business owner? Or what would you consider your title to be?
Well, I own my own production company, so when you're early on, you kind of have to wear multiple hats.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes depending on what's convenient, sometimes I'm an owner.
What's your favorite color hat?
Red, but not the Make America Great Again red ones.
Oh right, yeah, that can be misconstrued. You want like burgundy? That's a kind of red, right?
Yeah, burgundy's good. Yeah.
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 Okay. Keep going with your hat
Oh
metaphor.
yeah, no. So yeah, I mean, depending on the circumstance, I'd say I'm the owner of Ripple Light. Sometimes I'm a director. Sometimes I'm a producer, and like I said, and all the way down to a DP. And this whatever needs to be done at the moment, you have to pick it up. So, but eventually, as things start lining up, I'll probably just eventually become a producer or director, depending on the projects. But when you start off, you have to do everything. So
I feel like it'd be hard to be a producer, at least in the state that I'm in, because producers sit back a lot more, right? They just kind of suggest some things every now and again, because they're the ones paying for everything.
Well, and they're getting a lot of pressure. Well, in Hollywood, they're getting a lot of pressure from the people who invested money into the project, and so
Which isn't the producer?
the producer
Is the one who gets the investors, I guess.
he sometimes he helps with that and getting funds through marketing, and he basically makes the movie possible.
Okay.
That is the mission of the producer, and a producer is a good one. He's not sitting around just kind of going, well, I hope they're doing what they're supposed to.
Right,
So,
right.
But and then the director, depending on how the producer is, gives them a lot of say so, and in some cases the producer can ruin the movie because he gets too much input.
Have you seen The Producers, the movie?
The original one, yes. I haven't seen the musical, but I've seen
that's too bad.
the Mel Brooks one is a classic. Up with Gene Wilder. I mean,
Yeah,
it's hard
I
to
know
get
about it. I haven't seen it yet because
Yeah.
it's not like anywhere readily available to watch unless you buy it.
I have it on iTunes.
Okay, so yeah, unless you buy it.
Yeah.
But I own the somewhere over there. I own the new one.
Oh yeah, I've never watched.
It's a
that.
pretty good one too, with Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick.
Yeah, I think I rewatched the Mel Brooks Producers about 2 years ago, and it's hilarious. It's really good. I think I watched it right when Gene Wilder died. It's like my go-to movie just to remember him.
It's so sad because I grew up with my dad showing me all these old movies, and so those were like the normal famous people to me. Like, I don't know, I feel like too many people my age don't even know who Robert De Niro is, and if they do, they don't know him by name.
Yeah.
So like stuff like that like upsets me. So like when he dies, I'll be really upset, but I feel like within my age group, I'll be pretty alone being upset about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not to be depressing, but after you die, it takes about 40 years until you're completely forgotten.
40 years. Not with Hamilton, because they got a whole musical, and that was like 200 years
There's
ago.
always exceptions, but most people don't get a play written about them or a book written about them. It's usually so. And then
That's too bad.
people say, well, who's going to forget George Washington? Well, I mean, if America ever disappears, it's only a matter of time until people stop.
You don't
caring
think
about
he's
history.
historical enough that we'll still learn about him? Because there are societies that we learn about that don't exist anymore.
Yeah, I mean, well, look at South America and how many great empires existed, and name one famous person 1,000 years ago that was over the Incas.
I can't have a famous person over the Incas right now.
so I mean, that's my point. It's all about which continent is the most powerful,
Right.
and whose history do you care most about.
Right.
And eventually, it's possible America could be completely forgotten. I know it's
Way
depressing,
to be depressing.
but it is true.
So you own your own production company, and you tend to be the director on most projects that you guys do.
Yeah. Like right now, I act as a writer, director, DP, and editor. Although things are about to change because we just hired somebody. We're actually going to have a staff meeting this week and go over that.
Who's your favorite employee?
You are, Jackson.
Oh, thank you. I think I've mentioned it already in the podcast that you're my boss and I work for you. I'm trying to start a rival company under your feet. That's not true though, because I started it.
I don't really see it as a rival company.
Well, right, because creatively, as long as you're not incredibly big-headed, you can normally coincide. I mean, we've already done a project together.
Yeah. Well, I don't see the competitive side of it. I just don't. I think we have completely different long-term focuses. So I don't see the clash.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm also 19, so I'm slowly developing my long-term focuses. They change more than I wish they would, I guess.
Yeah. No, I mean, if whatever you learn through Ripple Light helps you out, fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about that.
I just realized, for any of the audio listeners, there's a little Spider-Man magnet right here that's always been on the side of my desk. And I just realized now, since I've changed everything, and now the live video is from this angle, you can finally see it.
Oh yeah.
It's just a nice moment for me to look at that and recognize it.
Yeah.
Also, there's a lot more wires, but I feel like that makes us look more official.
Sure.
Right, okay. Anyways, next question. I'll go back to this question. What is the story of you starting this company? Like, what made you decide, you know what, I want to start my own production company, and how did you go about it? And how long ago was it?
Yeah, it was quite, 2014, around that time, around May or whatever. But yeah, whenever you decide to do something, Kevin Baden, who is my partner who owns Ripple Live, we were talking about a concept that almost every entrepreneur has to be at least partially delusional.
Right.
Because when you start up something, you sound crazy. It's like, yeah, I'm going to start this company and I'm going to do this, and you have nothing to show.
Yeah.
But yet you're driven to do it. You look crazy. You look absolutely crazy.
I feel like anytime anybody asks me about the stuff that I'm trying to do, they'll look at me funny.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing is that you have to be slightly delusional, but your delusion has to match your willingness to achieve that goal.
Well, you also have to.
If they don't match, then you know.
Yeah, I feel like you have to follow a lot of negativity for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, every good comic says that they were rejected way more than they were accepted until they got famous.
But the bottom line is you say, I want to do this, and then it sinks in about how much that requires. And most people don't sit down and think about what they need to do up front.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, with what we're doing, you can't sit down and count the cost because the industry is constantly changing. We were talking about this earlier. You have to learn at least one thing new every single day.
Yeah.
Because you can't count and figure out everything before you move, especially with video production and podcasts, because the whole system is evolving.
Mm-hmm.
And so once you realize that, and you're willing to constantly learn and constantly willing to have to let go of how you used to do things, then I believe you can do some great things. And I'm still I still see myself as in the early phases of starting something. I don't see myself as like, whew, I've arrived.
Right.
So I'm still in the early phases, but when I look at where things are going, and I really give the credit to God, because just how everything conveniently works out.
Mm-hmm.
I look back at 2014, I'm like, what in the world happened?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, how did I get here? And, and like I said, you have to be slightly delusional but willing to put in the work.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, it can be disconcerting when you think about, sometimes you go years and years and years into something, and it's like just so slowly going along. But it is like, when you look at like where you are now compared to where you were 5 years ago, that's what gives you hope to be like, ooh, like,
absolutely, like
we're at least not staying still.
But the last week I've been working with the switcher for the podcast equipment we have, and I was telling my grandfather, I says, Granddad, I've learned so much information this week that if I were to share with anybody, it would bore them to tears.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the thing is, you have to learn so much stuff that you don't care about.
The good thing is that you've been sharing it with me.
Yes.
The whole time.
Yes. But if you're trying to pursue something, it may be an inconvenience, but man, the stuff I've learned the last 2 weeks.
You've interrupted me from my precious work to show me that you could switch from one screen to another. Like, hey, come here. And I'm like, I'm in the other building. And you're like, no, come here, look, watch.
And then I just hit a button.
And then you hit one button and a screen switches. That's so good.
Yeah, yeah.
You're like, this is 30 minutes of my life.
Yeah, it means something. But yeah, it's true. That's really how it feels to be an entrepreneur. You just have to be willing to constantly learn and unlearn. Mm-hmm. That's key. You cannot continue to do things the same way, especially in this industry, because how I would handle a camera, 5 years ago is not the same way I would handle it now.
So when did you graduate college?
2010.
With a bachelor's degree in communication?
Communications. Since I went to ACU, I got a minor in Bible because why not?
Yeah.
And
well, they make you take a certain amount of
you miss Bible
religious classes anyways.
Yeah, I took it in comms. Very few people actually use a degree.
Mm-hmm.
I actually used it quite a bit because I was in TV and radio. As far as and TV, I was down on the floor pushing the cameras and all that stuff. And then radio, I was actually a voice at KG&Z for a period of time. And then you start your own production company. So I've done your communications is all over the place. Yeah. And then my father, he used to teach broadcast. So full circle. I mean, this is crazy when you start thinking. I was like, wait, was this all like because of my family, like lineage or whatever?
Yeah.
Because it's quite crazy. Because my dad helped start the radio station ACU. And
What is the radio station at ACU called?
KACU.
And is it like actually on the radio?
It's on FM, yeah.
Okay.
They usually play. You'll hear a lot of classical and stuff like that type of things, but radio is a lot more of a big deal.
Do they have talk shows on there?
I think they may host some things. They have NPR News and some other things, but it's not your normal type of radio station.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, this kind of growing up with that type of stuff, I guess you kind of naturally feel more inclined to go in directions that way.
So where did you go from getting out of college?
Well, unfortunately, I went straight into the nonprofit world, and my first job was at CAP.
What's CAP?
Community Action Program, and I was over heating and cooling, which is helping to disperse funding from the government so homes that can afford air conditioning and heating can do so.
Yeah.
And 7 days. So this is hilarious. Well, I wasn't laughing when this happened to me, but I graduated ACU with a job lined up for me on Monday.
Yeah.
Okay, so my graduation was Saturday. My job was lined up for me to start on Monday, and then on Friday, everyone at CAP got laid off.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so 5 days into my job straight out of college,
Everyone got laid off, including you?
Yeah, everyone.
Oh, wow.
So I had a very determined personality, and I took one of the programs. I think it was like the family enrichment sector, and I used to do volunteer work for that during college, and it was the only one that was bringing in its own income through family divorce seminars, and so I used that money to basically create a job for myself and sustain myself through it. Anyways, and then eventually I got a job at the Alliance for Men and Children, and I was the director of the program eventually, and I had to manage over 60 staff, almost entirely college students. So as you can tell, as soon as I got out of college, everything that I was doing had absolutely nothing to do with my passions.
Yeah, I was about to say, heating and cooling.
Yeah, heating and cooling. And
that doesn't seem like it's even in the right direction.
And then I'm over the largest after-school program in Abilene within a year later and stuff like that.
That's how you do it, man.
So, but you
Next
know,
stop, Hollywood. Right?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a baptism of fire, because it was the most stressful 2 years of my life. Because when you do stuff that you don't want to do, that you may have some leadership skills, but it's an area that you just completely lack that passion.
Yeah.
It's painful. It's absolutely painful. And then eventually I was like, okay, I need to get out of this and pursue. And then of course when you do that and you look, it's Abilene. Abilene is not known to be Hollywood.
Yeah.
Abilene is not even known to be Austin. So the idea that I'm starting a production company in Abilene is insane. But you know, you have to remember, was Las Vegas always there in the desert? Was Hollywood always there in California? So people who are passionate, you can start things and build things, and sometimes they catch on. But the thing is that you won't find out unless you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what was it? Rooster Teeth. When they started and they got famous from Red versus Blue, and they were like creating their whole company. I think Bernie talks about how in the beginning, when there was like 4 or 6 of them or something, he was like, "Where do you guys want to go? Because we can go anywhere because of the internet."
Yeah.
And they were already in Austin, but they were thinking about going to, I think it was Chicago at the time or something like that, because they said, at the time it was like the cheapest housing, and they were like, we could just get super cheap houses and be famous or whatever.
Yeah.
But they all liked Austin, so they stayed there.
Yeah. Well, that was my thinking too. I'm like, I kept telling people, it's like, why are you in Abilene then? It's like, because it's the future.
Well, there's 3. I mean, there's 3 colleges in town. 3 big colleges in town, and they all have pretty decent, if not incredible, theater programs. And so, to be a filmmaker, that's pretty nice to have that. So you've got a lot of people that are not only good actors and actresses, but they're in the point of life where they really want to get things on their resume.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is I think next year or in the summertime we're going to try to connect and get some interns who are actually college students and everything like that. But yeah, you're right. When you start a project and everything, you have access to some amazing actors here locally. Most people don't even realize that.
Right.
But I mean, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, Abilene, nobody sees this place as you know, an opportunity. But you know, like I said, I told people this is the future. I said, you don't have to go to Hollywood and make, you know, X, Y, and Z. We have the ability to create content anywhere we are, and then shoot it up on the internet. And just like you're you know.
You should put the mic closer to you.
Just like the fact that you're doing this, you're not in a big studio, but you're starting off and you're building, and this is content that's going up on the internet.
Yeah.
That did not exist, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So I mean, we have.
Yeah,
all
it's pretty
these
cool.
luxuries.
I mean, right now I just invested, in this, and it was I think about $500, almost $600 altogether, and that's like, I mean, not cheap, but
Yeah.
that's pretty cheap to be like, now I've got an incredibly professional recording setup for just some random guy. I mean, when I started my first podcast, the Best Picture Brothers, with these two other guys, I think I bought the microphones for them last minute, like 2 days before our first episode was scheduled to air, and I just went to Best Buy, and I was like, I'm making a podcast, I need to know what to do. And they were like, we have these USB microphones, and I was like, okay. And then I figured out how to trick my computer into thinking that these 3 microphones were one microphone, so I was able to record them all on one device.
That's right.
But it's funny, I mean, just for like, that only costs like less than $200, and I had a 3-person podcast set up in a week,
Yeah, that's fantastic.
It's cool. It's cool the place that we're in now, that we can a lot more creative minds can put together things without
Yeah, well, I heard someone
breaking
say
their bank.
that our culture went from certain organizations, companies creating content to be consumed, to the consumers actually able to create content now.
Yeah.
And that's the age that we live in. And it's kind of scary because
It is a little scary. It gets scary to me. I've talked about this on the podcast before, but it gets scary to me in the way that you worry about. And I'm actually, I'm kind of in the process of starting a more daily show, and I'm writing different episodes for it. But there's one that I'm writing called, like, Are You Adding to the Noise? And there's a point where it gets like, I think there needs to be a purpose behind content.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have a purpose for this podcast. I wanted a place where I like what kind of Joe Rogan is doing, where it's this place where him and anybody of any view can sit down across the table from him and talk about anything. And we can be tolerant, and we can be completely opposite on some kind of view, but still get the discussion out there.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to have that space. So that's the idea of this being the popcorn space.
And that's so needed in this culture right now.
Oh, because people. I mean, I've never engaged in a Facebook fight, but I've seen them, and I've heard people stop doing the dishes to listen to a story about someone having a Facebook fight.
Yeah.
And I think my dad was telling me years ago how he got in a political Facebook fight, and he was like, "This is so dumb." And I was like, "Yeah, you're not supposed to do that. That's what not smart people do."
Yeah, don't do. Yeah.
Because I mean, you just don't get anywhere, and I mean, especially over text when you can't see somebody, and you can't even hear them or hear intent. It just gets so incredibly spiral. But the point that I was making from that was that's what this podcast is for, and so I'm not just creating this because I want to be famous or anything. But I see people post on Instagram. A lot of people my age, there will be. When I was in high school, there'd be like popular guys or girls at high school, so they have a lot of followers because they know so many people at high school. They would post on their story on Instagram or something like that, like some mirror selfie, and be like, "Should I start a YouTube channel?" And then have like a little poll, yes or no. And I would always put no. I'm like, that's not a. Why'd you start this YouTube channel to get famous? Well, I was bored and I was waiting on my friends to pick me up, so I posted on Instagram, and my followers thought I should.
Well.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad that you got a good message coming out.
Well, and I'm starting a podcast in the last week of February, and I've been putting a lot of time into it. And I 100% agree with you. You have to have a purpose behind what you're doing. If it's solely just because you want to become famous, then get in line.
And also that's a dangerous road to be headed down with no meaning behind it.
But at the same time, in crafting what I'm going to do in my podcast, I have to craft it in a way that I'm talking about things I'm passionate about. Because if you're not passionate about the topic, you might as well just not even do it.
Yeah.
And so you have to be able to do that. And of course, what you're talking about with two people talking that might disagree with, that is a gift that is sadly missing in our culture.
Mhm.
Because if you really care about people, you'll listen to them,
Yeah.
and that's how you're able to work towards peace. And sometimes you have to let go of a belief that you have in that
Yeah,
pursuit.
totally.
But that's not going to happen if you don't talk to other people, if you don't
Yeah.
hear what they have to say. You know, and I think that's unfortunate that we live in a time period right now where the moment you say something, they immediately assume.
Yeah, I
1,000
think
things.
we need to make sure to be careful and not to just be loose on all of our beliefs.
Yeah.
Because there have been arguments I've gotten to with people, and even on the podcast, where I like reflect on it later and be like, no, I'm standing my ground on that. I do still believe what I believed before. But there are times where a lot of the time when I disagree with someone, there's either some aspect that I'm missing, or about the whole scenario, or I'm like defining words differently. Like, do you
That's
ever
right.
do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, we had me and Andy Holmes had a discussion on the podcast like a while back, and we ended up getting into this. I mean, I wouldn't call it an argument because it wasn't heated. We weren't mad at each other or anything. I mean, we talked about it after the podcast too. But for like an hour, we were discussing order and chaos, and we kind of came to the conclusion at the end that we were just defining these words differently. And we were like, oh, I guess we do actually agree, but because he said something, he's like, how could you think order is this? And I said, well, because it's, I don't remember, but he was like, oh, well, that's not how I would define order.
Yeah.
And so that's how we kind of got to a conclusion with
you know,
that.
that's the thing is that.
But
almost,
it was nice to finally get somewhere from that conversation.
Well, you know, I love I love a good movie conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and I love a good theological conversation in
Mhm.
philosophy. But almost every single time when I'm talking with somebody, if it's theological, whatever, you have to realize that people have different definitions of theological terms.
Yeah.
So don't get bent out of shape until you go through the process of identifying, well, what do you believe about this?
Right.
You know.
Well, we're also in the new age of religion right now.
Yeah.
With and when I say it, I probably worded that wrong, but that's the word, right? New agey, like it's kind of
big time, yeah.
like Burning Man and stuff like that. So people all like kind of define their own,
Well,
or a lot of people define their own words.
Well, New Agey is really a blend of Eastern mysticism and Eastern thought into American culture that historically has been majority Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And then you add in the postmodern twist where everyone decides that they're going to take what they like, what they think sounds good,
Mm-hmm.
and then they blend it into their own belief system.
Right.
So when you're talking with people about religion or whatever, you're like, okay, what kind of mixture of, what kind of casserole do they have? What kind of ingredients do they put in? Because these days it's like, oh my goodness.
Well, it gets kind of difficult to have conversations with them sometimes because they'll talk about things that you've never heard before.
Yeah.
And
Like
you
you
find
should.
that,
Yeah.
And so, because when everybody has their own idea and they're not basing it in anything, like in any literature or scripture or something like that, I'm not trying to call it out, but it just can get difficult to
yeah, no, you're right. Well, like
understand people.
my first podcast episode is I'm dealing with postmodernism,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm also talking about how.
Postmodern neo-Marxist, like.
Well, no. I'm not going to. No. I'm just dealing with postmodernism by itself.
Yeah.
But how it has affected Christianity, and how to spot it in Christianity. Because I say Christianity, and if anyone's listening, they may have their own preset notion of what that even means.
Yeah.
And people have tons of different views of Christianity, but how many of them have the same understanding of Christianity?
Oh yeah, I think it's funny, I mean, we talk about, because we're currently doing or helping Chris McCurley with his Dear Church podcast, and you know, he's from the Church of Christ, and so he'll talk about specific issues with that. It's funny because I haven't thought about it in so long, because I grew up Church of Christ, and I kind of, when I got like super into my faith in like 6th and 7th grade, I went to a Baptist church. And it's funny, people who like aren't Christians or aren't super practicing Christians, a lot of people don't realize that there are so many incongruities, I guess, and like differences of opinion between these different denominations of the same religion.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It gets bizarre, and people get in huge
Yeah, absolutely.
fights about
And
it.
the number one thing, especially within Christianity, or what used to be the problem, this is actually the old problem. The new problems are much more severe.
Right.
But the older problems would be they made a tradition a law, where they made it synonymous with what the Bible says. And so you have all these different denominations that have all these different rules, and a lot of them are not in Scripture. And that was the old problem.
Yeah.
The new problem is it's not a tradition, and it's not the Bible, it's what I think sounds good, and then I insert it into Christianity. And so you have all these hybrids going on in America, and it's so confusing. And so my show kind of looks at the different ideologies and philosophies and how they've meshed themselves with Christianity. And I'm going to be looking at films and movies. And like I said, that podcast will be starting in the last week of February. I think the first movie I'm going to blend and look in through postmodernism is actually The Matrix.
Oh, yeah?
From 1999. Oh, it's a perfect movie for postmodernism.
I mean, I think it's a super. I mean, it's just the Jesus story.
You think so, but then you realize what the Wachowskis did is they blended Christianity with a lot of other things.
Like what?
Okay.
Give me a sample.
Well, I don't want to get into it, but there's a misconception that the Matrix is actually a Christian-based or inspired film.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what postmodernism does, is it makes you think it's something, but it's actually a mixture of a ton of different stuff.
Well, it takes at least the basics, which is like they talked about Neo in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
There was one guy who said he'd come back. He like died for other people and said that he would come back to save them or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's calling on different. There are Christian themes in it.
Yeah.
But to say that it's Christian inspired is
But it's like a
largely misguided.
blended. It's a theologically blended.
It's a perfect example
movie.
of postmodernism. In fact, if you even the Wachowski brothers, or at the time they were still the brothers, they broke down the trilogy because for the longest time I didn't understand it, and I'm not going to get into this in my podcast, but Matrix Reloaded frustrated a lot of people because it's like, oh, Neo's the one. No, there was 6 ones.
Oh, I've legitimately not even finished that movie.
Yeah, and what they did is, in listening to them, they treated their series as an experiment of postmodernism. And what they did is they built up these truths in the first Matrix movies, which in itself was formulated from different philosophies.
Right.
And then in the second one, their whole goal was to deconstruct what they had built, and then to rebirth it in revolutions. So they weren't even trying to tell a good story. They were trying to apply philosophical concepts for each film, and to them, they loved it. But to the average moviegoer, they're like, how dare you? How dare you do all that stuff? And the average person had no clue what they were doing.
Yeah.
But they did. And they finally opened up about it. And once I saw, I was like, oh, you were deconstructing everything you built in the first movie on purpose.
I don't know much about them. Why did you say they used to be the brothers? Have they like transitioned?
It's I think they're now women.
They're both now women.
Yeah, that's why I said that's why I said they were the brothers, and now they want to be called the Wachowskis and everything like that. So it's.
What's the last project they worked on?
The last movie I remember they did was Jupiter Ascending, and that was really bad.
One that everyone hates.
Everyone was real bad. Yeah.
I didn't see it, but I was at my uncle's house talking. I was hanging out with my cousin, and when that movie was in the theaters, and I just remember my uncle and aunt getting back, and he like slammed the door, and he was like, "I've just seen the worst movie that's ever been created," and he like went on a huge rant about Jupiter Ascending.
Oh man,
with
it's funny.
Mila Kunis and Channing Tatum.
It's so bad. It's borderline funny. I wouldn't mind watching it again just to laugh at it.
Don't they like skate in space?
It's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to talk about it. Actually, there's better things to talk about.
I actually don't want to talk about it. We never got into. So what happened? What were your first like film related jobs out of college? When did you get into not nonprofit?
I'm not. We started making videos of local commercials and everything like that, and we used to do that from time to time. But I had a real passion and that I wanted to do better quality for nonprofits, and that's actually the best place to start if you're a new person, because nonprofits you normally can't afford a production company, so it's if you are willing to help them out, they're usually very open to that, and that's a great way to learn.
Yeah.
And so I started making commercials for a lot of nonprofits. RVCC, which is like a regional victim crime, I forget what it's called, but it had to do with sexual abuse and abuses on children. We made a series, a 3 commercial series that was so controversial that before it showed anything inappropriate, it would go right up to that point and then stop. They were so disturbing that I think KTED had to do a news poll on the viewers to decide whether or not they were going to keep allowing those commercials to run on TV, because they were so disturbing. And so that was literally, and we did those series, I did those for free, because that was the first thing I wanted to do.
Just for like resume?
No, I was passionate about what they were doing, and I was like, you know what, I'll do it for free. And so I had Sandman and a few others, Matt, Carol, and I feel like I'm forgetting some other people. But we all came together.
So man,
and
they're listening right now.
Yeah, we all.
So man.
Well, we have a plaque. We all got a plaque for that and a little certificate. But
they're probably watching the Super Bowl right now.
Yeah, they're probably watching the Super Bowl. But yeah, we got real passionate, and we did it. It was the first thing we did, and we made a ton of mistakes. It's in black and white for a reason.
Yeah.
Not because it's artsy. It's just we mess up our white balance. And
Yeah.
all that stuff. So
That's pretty funny.
But no, who everybody watched is like, oh wow, that's artistic. It's like no, that was last resort. But you know, I started doing that, and then same thing with weddings. When I started doing weddings, I did it for super cheap. Yeah. And then now, you know, I have a certain price range and all that stuff. So you had to start off small, you had to start off cheap, and you need to start off passionate.
Right.
And then eventually all those things go up. Eventually you go from doing something for nothing for something, and then that, you know, slowly goes up. And then eventually, you know, I started making a lot of Christian videos, and we got a ton of followers on Facebook.
So define Christian videos. What exactly?
It was basically videos that dealt specifically with theological concepts, like what does the Bible have to say about Jesus being God.
So is it like a guy just in front of a camera?
No, these were actually graphic videos where you would see words and probably my voice. And then sometimes there was a guy in front of the camera who was addressing a topic. But the ones that I did personally were graphic heavy videos with words and stuff like that. Now I like to tackle videos about who Jesus was according to Scripture, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions, especially in movies. It's funny because almost every Jesus movie you watch, Jesus looks like Fabio with long flowing hair. Yeah. And he probably used to work in a soap opera. Yeah. You know.
Well, Jesus is like absolutely, definitely not white, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, he's not going to be the European light skin, but he's going to be more of a Jewish descent. So
because
it's not,
like every time we've seen him.
He's usually
like
European,
super white,
super guy. European, and blue-eyed. No, and what's interesting is Isaiah 53 actually says Jesus was unattractive.
Yeah, not just normal looking, but like a little ugly.
Yeah, it literally says there was nothing attractive about him. Yeah. So it's like, who do you cast to play that role? Yeah. And instead they try to find a really good-looking Italian guy.
Well, it's hard. It's hard because that's the interesting thing about that's one of the interesting things about the Jesus story, which is, I mean, when you think of, I don't want to just make a vast generalization, but when you think of somebody who's like a lead in a movie, you don't want to cast someone who people would think is unattractive, because we tend to want to, I think probably subconsciously, we want to relate to an attractive person who makes us feel attractive.
Sure, yeah. Well, and that's the thing, is that what makes Jesus so unique in the way that Christianity presents him is that the Bible never talks about his skin tone. Yeah. It never talks about how he looks, other than the fact that he wasn't all that. Yeah. But there's no descriptions of him.
That should be the biblically accurate movie of Jesus. Yeah. He's not all that.
Well, yeah, he's not all that physically.
That's what it should be called.
Yeah, he's literally a man, and he's not an impressive looking man. And the whole point of the Bible being absent on those details was that way Jesus doesn't just relate to one specific group of people. Right. He's actually universal. And that's how Scripture portrays him, is in a very universal sense, that you don't know him based off of physical concept, but spiritually. And that's why there's no physical description of him. And I'm glad that's not in Scripture, because otherwise you would have major problems.
Oh, yeah.
If there were.
Well, I mean, we'll find a reason to hate each other anyways, because that's what.
Yeah. But it's not going to
sadly,
be. It's not going to be on hair color, or skin color of Jesus. It's just because the Bible is silent on that.
Yeah.
And it's not because you can't determine it based off of historical records. It's just a non-issue. Scripture doesn't want to deal with it. So I would do videos, Christian videos on a lot of them on who Jesus is, what is the accurate view of Jesus in Scripture. And then I started, when I was going down that direction, I was real frustrated with the prosperity gospel, which is, you come to Jesus for money. And that's, oh my goodness, that makes me angry.
You come to Jesus for money?
Yeah, if you become a Christian, and you can always tell prosperity doctrine in that it tells you need to give 10%, and if you don't, you're in sin, and you're not gonna prosper unless you give to the church.
Yeah.
These are men trying to make a profit off of the church that way. It doesn't mean you shouldn't give, but if your preacher is telling you that if you give, you'll prosper financially, there's a problem.
Yeah.
Or the reason why your business isn't doing good is because you're not giving. Really, when your business does good, that means you're a good steward, that you're working hard. Okay. And yeah, God can bless it, but it's not tied because you're giving to the,
Right.
So, but then the other problem is they give you this false concept that if you just name it and claim it, if you just say it, it'll happen. So say you want $1 million and just the universe will give it to you. And actually what that is that was the New Ageism.
Yeah, that was the
Eastern,
the Oprah thing. Right?
Yeah, that was Eastern thought and mysticism coming into Christianity, saying that your words have power. The secret. If you just say it.
Is that what that Netflix thing is called? The Secret?
I don't know if it's. There was a book that came out that was saying the reason why all these ancient people became successful is because they could use words and they claimed a vision ahead of time. That is not biblical. That's called magic. Okay, that's the foundation of Wicca and all that kind of stuff, and that got into Christianity. But then the thing that disturbed me the most was.
Is that not pulling towards you, by the way?
I can bring it closer. Is actually kind of where I met Andrew Holmes. Was I started doing a lot of research, and I've been on it for several years, and that was seeing the movement of postmodernism.
Which is part of the documentary you want to
Yeah,
make,
and
right?
that's still in the works 100%. And once I realized what that was, and how it's hit all the major universities, and how culture, and then how it's hitting the church, I actually was quite terrified. Because that too, I don't know which one I feel more disturbed about, the prosperity gospel or postmodernism hitting the culture. And if postmodernism is basically the belief that the theory that there's no theories.
Yeah.
Or the belief that there's...
It kind of throws away absolutes.
Yeah. But the absolute truth is that there's no absolute truths, which is an absolute statement.
Are you absolutely sure?
Yes. But the thing is that when you step back, and I'll cover this on my podcast and go into more detail, is what is postmodernism ultimately? Because it's not a sustainable ideology. If you teach a whole culture of people that nothing really is true, that's a very frustrating position to hold to your whole life. And eventually, people will get frustrated.
It gets super problematic because the ultimate, a great, what's his name? I think it's Norman Deutsch or something like that, did the foreword for Jordan Peterson's book. And in the foreword, like one of the best forewords I've ever read, I did not expect it to be that good, but he talked about a huge problem with postmodernism and that the ultimate possible good is that everyone is just tolerant. But then, I don't know, he talked about how it separates us more and more for people to just be tolerant of other people's views that they've, made up because that's what makes them happy.
There's two major problems that I see currently in our culture today. And one thing is when you make everyone divided and they don't believe in anything, what's going on with postmodernism is I see it as a reset button. You know the saying, well, when the dust settles? Well, all postmodernism does is throw dust up in the air.
Yeah.
The question is what will be the mainstream belief after it settles? And it will be Christianity.
Well, it'll be interesting to see where it goes. Who's to say
because
that won't be around when it settles?
Yeah, postmodernism does one thing: is it deconstructs. It doesn't lead you anywhere. It leads you away from something, and then it makes you make up something or combine multiple things.
That's what I think is so nice about specific. I mean, a lot of the intellectual dark web, as they call themselves, but specifically Jordan Peterson, because he is finally someone who's really trying to establish the point that absolute truth not only exists, but it really matters that it exists.
Matters, I couldn't agree more.
And that's why I think so many people are flocking to him.
Yeah, and the thing is, Christianity should be that voice, because that's very much a Christian belief system that Peterson is advocating. That's why so many Christians like Jordan Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
But
he hasn't come out to say that he's specifically Christian or not Christian.
Right, and who knows? But he says a lot of things that I deeply agree with. Mm-hmm. But here's my other greatest concern. Number one, postmodernism deconstructs, it destroys. Mm-hmm. But before it gets to the destruction part, it completely divides, and it divides within the divide. Mm. And so what you're seeing in America right now, all these groups, and it's worse than tribalism, because it's like tribalism times 1,000.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you associate with this group, but within this group, there's also 1,000 other groups that have slightly different variations of something.
Yeah.
And it's so confusing.
Well, I mean, the tribes are getting incredibly... more and more subdivided, as we speak. So it's just getting like from race to gender to vegans and vegetarians and like it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller until none of us can be in the same room with the others. But it's like that's the problem with tribalism.
The worst case scenario with this division,
with the exclusivity of tribalism,
is that eventually the tribes vanish, and now every individual has their own unique belief system.
Oh yeah, well then it gets like it draws us apart because nobody can agree on anything or relate to the other person truly.
Because you ultimately, Peterson said this too. In fact, if I could ask one question to Jordan Peterson, the question would be, because he says that everyone derives their belief system.
Well,
and
I know
values.
it would be because you already told me.
Yeah, everyone derives their belief systems and their values from the position of their God. Mm-hmm. Even if they don't believe in a God, there's something in that altar that they pull those things from. And what's happening in our culture is that altar is now being, basically you're being influenced to put yourself there. Mm-hmm. And whatever I decide is right, then I am the founder and creator of my own values.
I think the reason Jordan Peterson would never answer your question as to specifically where he derives his values from, like what God or entity, is because I think if he did answer that question completely straightforwardly, number one, it could be misinterpreted, but two, I think that he probably thinks it would block a lot of potential listeners.
Yeah, and I know that's what
that his words could be good for.
But if I could get 20 minutes with him alone in a room and get him to believe,
like I promise I won't tell,
that I would never tell anybody else.
Right.
Like, Jordan, just tell me, please.
Yeah.
Okay. But the thing is you can work backwards with somebody.
Yeah.
And that one of the greatest things that Jordan Peterson said that I completely 100% is that you can tell what someone believes by how they live. Mm-hmm. How they live tells you what they actually believe and value.
Well, I think a huge thing about Jordan Peterson saying that people live as though there were a God, even if they call themselves atheists, is if you become like such. People call themselves nihilists and that there's no meaning, and then you'd say, well, then why are you still here? Like, I don't believe that you're truly a nihilist. Like, I don't believe you because you're still here. Why would you? Like, obviously, life is suffering. You suffer all the time.
Yeah.
What if the suffering is truly meaningless and there's nothing beyond it? Then why have you decided to stay here? Like, can't anything be better than this if it's so meaningless?
Yeah. Well, and nihilism is also can be a byproduct of postmodernism.
Oh yeah, well, because when there's no absolute truth, then there's nothing to
there's
derive
no
meaning.
Correct.
Yeah.
But nihilism preceded postmodernism far in advance by decades.
Mm-hmm. Or I think a good point that Jordan Peterson makes is he says, obviously there's meaning, which is like when you go through suffering, people say, what's the meaning in life? But obviously there is meaning, at least at that point, because it's suffering. The meaning is the suffering. But what you mean is there any positive meaning to combat the suffering? And so the thing is, he says it's basically like the shadow proves the sunshine. So you see
Yeah.
the negative meaning, and nobody can deny that. You look at like the thing that they did in the Gulag camps and in Nazi Germany, all these horrible, horrible things and suffering. Obviously, no nihilist or postmodernist can truly combat the fact that that suffering was evil and had negative meaning associated.
Well,
to
and
it.
that's why I love Christianity. That's why I love Jesus. Is that the Christian message is that of.
I love Jesus because he's unattractive.
Well, the Christian message is why suffering exists.
I hope that doesn't get taken out of context.
Well, the thing is, the true Jesus you should find quite appealing, but not on the physical.
Right, I was just kidding.
But
a silly
the
joke.
thing is that Christianity brings hope.
Yeah.
Like Peterson says, what's that positive, that end result that people are looking for? And Christianity provides that.
Mm.
And that's why it's not going anywhere. And even through this postmodern battle that we're experiencing all the way up to politics, Christianity will endure. It might get small, but it will endure. And it's interesting to see. I'm interested to see what society is, how society will treat Christianity in 20 years.
Well, it's currently going to a negative direction.
Yes. And the thing is that will bring suffering back to the church, and that is actually when the church grows spiritually. Is that I always tell people, if you want to grow spiritually and you pray, God, I want to grow spiritually, you're literally asking God that you want to suffer, because that's how you grow.
Well, yeah, it's important. I mean, we talked about on our What Is God podcast or Who's God podcast. It was you can find God in the mix of, you have order and then chaos and then evolution, and that's how you grow closer to him.
Yeah, and so like I said, I'm real passionate about this topic because I realize the prosperity gospel was small potatoes. Now, the prosperity gospel is making Christianity look really bad because it looks like a pyramid scheme.
What is the prosperity gospel?
It's basically a false hope of financial prosperity through the gospel, which, by the way, was never what the gospel was about.
Yeah. Right, what you were saying
But
before.
it's Eastern mysticism mixed with capitalism, consumerism.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think that's what Christianity is. It's a bunch of people who are basically trying to hustle and get your money and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And
which there have been
yeah.
accounts of, but that's not what the...
Yeah, and I realize that's small potatoes compared to what's the bigger problem, and it's postmodernism is erasing meaning and absolute truth. It is the perfect enemy set against Christianity, and like I said, it throws the dust up in the air. We are now a post-Christian society, and we're now a secular society.
Yeah.
And where that's going to go, I have no idea. It is very possible that a religion can dominate America again, but it could also mean that it won't be Christianity. It could be Islam. It could be an Eastern capitalism inspired, reshaped form of some sort of Eastern thought.
You don't think that atheism might take over?
Atheism, I think it's a very tiresome.
I don't think it would. I don't think it would last if it did, because it doesn't derive its values from any kind of.
So many people want answers, and atheism doesn't provide it. I think atheism will always be around, but will it be the dominant one? I actually think religious groups will always be dominant because they answer questions that naturalism through science cannot answer.
Well, that's the one thing, and I like Sam Harris. We were talking about this before.
Yeah.
I like Sam Harris sometimes. I think he's a really smart guy, and I think he's trying to do good things, and he's, a devout atheist, an outspoken atheist, but I think one of the things that he truly, I've never seen him answer straightforwardly is, where the meaning would come from if you had like an atheist nation. Obviously, we've never had a completely atheist nation, so we have nothing to draw from experience. But
well, the thing is, there's a frustration, and I was talking about this. It's tiresome, at least for me. But it's natural for people to ask, "Why am I here?"
Yeah.
And it's natural for people to ask, "How did I get here?" Well, both questions, atheism through naturalism, cannot answer.
Yeah.
Or at least give you an answer that's fulfilling. Well, you're an accident. Oh, you know, who likes to be told they're an accident, all right, you know?
I do.
But it's like you're an accident and you came from, you know, a rock or a pool, or they have several different, or aliens planted you here, which leads to the inevitable question of, well, then who made the aliens?
Right,
And
because there's got to be some, logically, there has to be some kind of beginning.
Yeah.
Which it seems almost like a paradox, because time, as far as we've experienced it, has been never ending.
Well,
but there had to have been some beginning, because it doesn't make sense that it would have gone forever that way.
and don't get me wrong, if someone's listening and they're an atheist, obviously atheism has given you answers that satisfy you.
Yeah.
However,
I don't mean to project any hatred towards atheism.
However,
or anything.
I'm saying for most people, atheism is not an ideal. You know, it's so. It doesn't give the answers that make them, you know, look at bigger questions.
Right. Well, a lot of us are trying to figure out why the heck we're here, and life is really confusing. So I'm not here to dump on anybody's anybody's path that they're trying to figure out why they're here. So I don't mean to project any negativity or hatred towards atheism.
But the thing is, the reason here's my 10 cents on why I've never pursued atheism. Okay, and I've been friends with atheists, and I don't have an issue with people who believe that. I don't agree with them, but the reason why is I look at this world, just by the clear evidence of what I see, and I conclude that everything I see cannot possibly be all that there is.
Yeah.
And I absolutely believe that there's a metaphysical reality, a spiritual world for some.
Yeah.
For me, it's definitely the spiritual realm. And I believe that the answers are only found in the things that we cannot see. For example, the Big Bang Theory. Did anyone get that on tape? You know what I'm saying?
Now we all missed it.
Yeah, we all missed it. And there's so many things that when science tries to conclude based off of only what it sees, are you 100% sure?
Yeah.
And no, they're not 100% sure.
Well, isn't it? And this is what I've always heard. So I don't know if it's completely untrue, but isn't it supposed to be something like scientifically it doesn't make sense that the bumblebee can fly based on its like wingspan and its weight or something like that?
I have no idea.
I'm not crazy. I'm gonna look this up.
Okay, I mean, you can. I mean, that's fine. But I mean, obviously it does. So obviously there's some sort of physics behind the bumblebee on why it's able to do it.
No, I think it doesn't make sense scientifically.
Like proportionately, like the size of the bee to its wings.
The bumble.
Okay, well, while you're doing that, I'll keep talking on the concept.
Fly.
But you know, to me, you know, there's so much.
According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way that a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off the ground. The bee, of course, flies anyway because bees don't care what humans think is impossible.
Okay. Well, I've never heard that, but I don't know quite sure if I'll ever use that as a strong.
Forbes.com. I don't know what Forbes is.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever use that as a strong. But there's a lot of people who are not Christians, who are not religious, who are tremendously frustrated with naturalism and atheism. There's a great book that I read last year by his name is David Berlinski, and it's called The Devil's Delusion, which was a response to Hawking's book on Richard Dawkins on the God delusion. And there's a lot of people who are not atheists, who are also not religious, who are very frustrated with the current theories on cosmology and evolution. And I, you know, I'm interested to see where science is going to be in another 20 to 50 years, actually. But I wouldn't put my stock in a lot of it, especially in the origin theories. I wouldn't put my stock in those things. Any other interesting facts that you discovered over there?
Yeah, it's just this guy talking about how it's. I think what it says about the fact that the bumblebee can't fly, or shouldn't be able to fly, but it does obviously, is the fact that science gets some things wrong sometimes, but I feel like the scientific mindset is that science is the thing that we finally discovered that doesn't get things wrong, because it goes by a system that cannot be flawed, like math, essentially. Like math exists completely within absolutes. Like the
Objective truth,
Yeah, the whole argument against postmodernists and no absolutes is 2 plus 2 is 4 and will always be 4.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
there's no getting around it unless you change the definition of
Yeah.
2 plus 2. You
Yeah.
know? But it, but scientifically, if I have 2 of something and I add 2 more, it's going to be 4. It's certainly in that.
And don't get me wrong, I love science. Science. I mean, obviously, we're using science right now to have this podcast. So science is great. What
I was about to say Bill Nye's great,
Yeah.
but isn't he like super weird now?
Well, he's super radical against Christianity for some reason, but I love science.
But he's also not a real scientist, right?
That is correct.
He's like an actor.
He's more of an actor who's for some reason a poster child, well, obviously not a child now, of science.
Poster elder.
My biggest concern with science is not science. It's when academia comes up with a theory on origin and it says that this is a scientific fact when it's actually a scientific theory.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a difference between theory and fact.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the controversy arises. Nobody is arguing the science behind what makes the battery work, you know, because the battery works.
Mm-hmm.
And no one's arguing about the mathematics behind 2 plus 2 equals 4. It's when you come up with origin explanations to the creation of the universe or the spontaneous existence of the universe.
Yeah.
In X, Y, and Z.
So it is the Patriots and the Rams. We got it right, by the way.
Oh, okay.
And it's current. If it's still going on, I think it is. It's currently 3-0, because it goes to like 9, right?
I don't know.
Well, it's either 3-0 or the Patriots won.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Cool.
We have 2 people watching though, so that's cool, and they've been watching for a little while.
Yeah.
So we're beating football. Look at us. This is like our life's work. We're finally doing it.
Worst time to have a podcast ever.
Right. Well, and yeah, I actually changed from my normal time to fit your schedule so we could have it during the Super Bowl. I think it was a scheme that you had.
Maybe.
I imagine.
Yeah.
I wanted to get into some of your movie thoughts on movies now, because we talk about this sometimes at work, instead of getting work done, which is always productive. But what are your thoughts on shared universes?
I think Marvel is building a disaster that will await them. I think when it falls, it'll fall.
Yeah.
But I think
I'm so ready.
I think DC should have never chased after Marvel. I think the worst thing they ever did was to try to make an equivalent to the Infinity Stone storyline.
Yeah.
With Steppenwolf leading up to what was the name of the Apocalypse character? Darkseid. Is Darkseid is the equivalent of Thanos in DC. I mean, if you're gonna follow
Justice, I've seen like
the
DC.
DC
movies.
is like, it was so on your nose, like, yeah, we're trying to be like Marvel, to the point that we're literally building this subplot that's identical to Thanos. And I was like, come on, guys. What DC should have always done is to stuck with what DC does best, is either make a Justice League movie,
yeah,
or make standalone superhero movies. That's what you guys do best. Just stick with that formula.
like they were the first superhero movie to get nominated for an Oscar ever.
Yeah.
The Dark Knight.
Yeah, that's huge. And like a lot of people are upset with the Joaquin Phoenix Joker, because they're like, well, what about Jared Leto's Joker in Suicide Squad? I collapsed when I heard the news about Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie, because I'm like,
because it's like by itself. And
yeah,
they're like
I'm
actually focusing on
DC
the individual
is realizing its strength. Like, hey, if we want to have 3 different Jokers that exist in 3 different universes, we're gonna do that. I'm like, thank you.
Speaking of that, Ben Affleck's out as Batman.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Well, he had so much potential. I think
Yeah.
it was just he was never given a real chance.
I don't know. I don't love Ben Affleck that much in general. I mean, I guess I don't hate him, but I can't think of any roles that I've really, really enjoyed him. I thought he was okay in Daredevil, but most people don't like that movie.
Here's the thing with Ben Affleck. I thought he looked great as Batman, but I asked the question, does he look like somebody that I could actually see is crazy enough to dress up as a bat and beat up people? And the answer is yes. That like Ben Affleck, that is someone who I can see doing that. And Michael Keaton was the other one.
Yeah.
He looked so crazy. Like, yeah, that guy would definitely dress up as a bat and beat
Yeah,
up people. And but the other, like Christian Bale, I'm like, no, you're crazy, but you're you're not crazy enough to dress up as a bat and beat up people. And George Clooney was like, no, you should go back to the ER, okay? Because you're not Batman, you're a doctor.
Bimlendra Kumar said hi.
Okay.
And then I assume left because as soon as I mentioned we had 2 watchers, now we only have 1.
Oh, okay. So we ran.
Unless they're now the one watching.
Or maybe since we switched topics to movies, you're like, I don't really care about movies.
They were like, I liked when you talked about how much you hate football. And then they left.
But yeah, I like Ben Affleck. I don't think he was given a good shot, and I'm excited that DC is getting away less cinematic universe and going back to what they do best.
Well, I was talking to Trey, who was on the podcast last week. He's the one who messaged me and said that Ben Affleck was out. And I can't remember what I said. I said something like, yay. And he was like, I liked him. But I have no room to talk because I haven't even seen an entire movie with Ben Affleck as Batman. I saw the promos and it didn't interest me at all. And I'm trying as hard as I can to not watch superhero movies that come out.
Yeah.
If I truly don't think they're going to be very good. Because I want to hopefully try to send a message over an amount of people that are like, I'm done with these and I don't want to see them. And so I don't want to give money to them so they'll make more of them.
Well, here's the thing. Is that...
Because I think certain great movies are taking a back seat financially because all the producers are putting money into these superhero movies.
Yeah, but great movies are not a financial guarantee for the industry. That's why. That's why. Like, for example, you know what a great movie is?
What?
Blade Runner 2049. Fantastic movie.
Can't vouch for that because I haven't seen it.
Okay, made a little bit of money in the box office. I'm pretty sure it lost money overall. Movies like that are why the industry will not take gambles. Okay,
but that's dumb.
And those are big movies. And I was actually thinking about this the other day. I was thinking about big years for original movies. 1999 was a big year for original content.
As The Matrix.
And Star Wars Episode 1. A lot of people roll their eyes when I say Star Wars Episode 1, but who created Star Wars? George Lucas. Who wrote and directed Star Wars Episode 1? George Lucas. It was actually a visionary being allowed to continue his vision because he owned it. That's beautiful. Unfortunately, the movie's not that great, but it's an original. It's what he wanted.
So you think it killed the original movies?
Well, no. What I'm saying is that it made money. The prequels made money.
I'm gonna you know what? I own them, and I haven't watched them since I was like a kid. I want to rewatch them because I had a conversation with I think Trey about it, and I was like, you know what? When I was a kid, I loved those movies, and I think the thing is that they're more kid friendly, but I don't remember. I mean, I guess I just haven't seen them since I was a kid, but I don't remember them being that bad particularly. Yeah,
and of course, The Matrix came out. That was original.
Yeah.
And
And that did pretty well, right?
Yeah, and that was the Wachowski at the time brothers, who made the movie, and they were allowed. They wrote the script. It was the 3rd script in the series that they sold to the studio.
Yeah.
And they finally earned a prestige to direct their own material, which happened to be The Matrix. It was the last one made that the studio bought. And that's an example of visionaries making original content. And they got to make 3 of them. Now, unfortunately, 2 and 3 were bad. And then the Wachowskis have done nothing but make original material minus Speed Racer since then. And unfortunately, they've all flopped and haven't done well. But that was original content. And then you fast forward, you have episode 2, you have episode 3, which are all original content because it's made by the creator who has full control over it. And then the next example of original content that I can come up with is Avatar. Okay? Now, before then, original content was normal. Okay? It was birthed from the 1970s when they were trying to figure out what to do after the Westerns. Yeah. So you have movies like Jaws, you have movies like Star Wars, you have Alien, you have all these original properties that were just shooting out, and then it inspired the 80s, and the 80s was filled to the brim of original content. So much so we're making the movies based off of the content that came out in the 80s.
Why did it fall apart? Where was it that it fell apart?
Because it wasn't a sustainable model, and that there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee that original content can make money. And what happened was the marketing shift. And they realized that the only way that they can make a movie is if there's some sort of evidence that this property can make money. So the safest gamble is comic books or pre-existing original properties.
I think the problem is that they're just spending too much money on movies right now.
Right, because they keep making, they keep spending more money, but they also keep making more money.
Yeah.
And part of it also had to do with the opening up into the international. When overseas started to become possible with making a profit. There's some movies like Aquaman has made over $700 million of its $1.1 billion revenue was overseas, and it's only made about $300 million domestically. Well, let's think about that for a moment. And if you want to know why humor in movies has gotten kind of weird, it's because Hollywood is now making humor in movies to appeal to mass audiences, not just America, but internationally. And so once Hollywood started to be able to make a lot of money overseas, that changed everything. That was a new level of change. One is let's make properties that are safe, that we can prove historically will make money. And then secondly, let's make properties in a way that will make money overseas.
Well, you know,
and that's where we're at.
It's weird because like, I know a lot of people my age, a lot of people in general like The Other Guys, and I think it's a fine movie. Do you like it?
With Will Ferrell and what's his name?
Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, Mark Wahlberg. Yeah, I've seen it before. It's funny.
It's funny, yeah, but I think it's just set a weird tone. For Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg again in Daddy's Home or whatever. We just have this really weird tone with comedies today that I think in no way matches old movies, because those are the ones I grew up on. Like, have you ever seen Midnight Run?
No, I have not.
Midnight Run is a fantastic movie. It's got Robert De Niro and, for the life of me, I can't remember the other guy's name. But it's hilarious. And a lot of people today, as far as, I've never gotten into a conversation with somebody who, like, knows it, or certainly not often. Like, What About Bob? Have you seen What About Bob? So funny, like hilarious, but nobody knows about it.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, like so, and these
my
movies.
My dad hates it, but I love it.
I can't. It's so good.
But my dad hates Bill Murray. That's why. But the thing is that comedies.
But these so overdue, like the comedies that we have today.
Absolutely.
Like tenfold, but these are the ones that are getting made. Like the one with Ryan Reynolds and Samuel L. Jackson, The Hitman's Bodyguard. That was the most subpar movie I've ever seen. Because I saw the trailer and I was like, that looks funny, I want to go see it. And it was just like, so, blech.
Yeah. Well, you know, comedies have changed though. Like, today's approach to comedies, because we have digital cameras and we can waste hard drive space instead of film. They're like, let's just improv this scene. And so like every single Will Ferrell movie I've ever seen, I've just given up on them. I don't even watch them anymore because I'm just like, okay, I know what you're doing. It's this improv that's edited in a way, and I'm like, back in the day, comedies were actually more thought out. They were more intentional. There was more craft and love by the director or whoever was the visionary behind it. And like, just look at Ghostbusters that came out in the 80s. It's like the humor is so subtle, but it's just that right level of humor that makes it funny. That, you know, today's comedies have to constantly be over the top and goofy. I'm just let the movie breathe a little bit, okay? We don't need a joke every 30 seconds. Ghostbusters didn't give you a joke every 30 seconds, but when it did have a joke, it was hilarious. Like the original, the time you ever saw the movie and you see the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, that is hilarious.
Oh,
you know?
I watch Ghostbusters probably at least once a year. Like and it's still funny to me. Yeah,
it's like, you know, think of the one thing that will be your destroyer, and Ray thinks of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and this giant, cute.
He was always there for me when I was
just walking down the street, crushing cars, and it's set to kill the Ghostbusters. I mean, like, stuff like that, that's someone sitting down and actually loving what they're doing and making it. And I just feel like directors today get these talented people in the room and they're like, make something funny up now.
Yeah, I know. It's just, I mean, there's so few movies today that I think are just genuinely good. And I feel like I've had to lower my standard because a lot of movies from today that I'm like, yeah, that was okay. If I compare it to great movies of even the last, if I open it up to 30 years, it's like, wow, it was so not very good. Like, what they're doing now is they're making sequels to all the great movies from before. Which I so respect the Coens because they're like, I will never make a sequel. They just don't believe in that, which thank God. Because it just ruins what we loved before. Like, they made the Dumb and Dumber sequel. Dumb and Dumber was hilarious. And the sequel was so bad. Like, there were 3 parts that I was like, oh, that's kind of funny.
Yeah, if you want to watch Dumb and Dumber 2, just watch the trailer, because those are actually the funniest
That's
parts.
the funniest thing. Just the trailer. That's it.
That's it. Don't watch the movie.
Because when you see the trailer, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
Well, and here's the thing. I've stopped watching comedies in general because they're distasteful. Like, the inappropriate jokes, you know, when you look back at, like, Gene Wilder, how did he get you to laugh? Was it because he made some easy sex joke, or because he actually was actually so creative and thoughtful in how he did things
Yeah.
that it was genuinely funny because it was funny?
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of comedians today go for the dirty jokes just as a default. I'm
Yeah.
like, come on, guys,
Well-
what happened to the smart humor, the
Well,
thoughtful humor?
I mean, there's a problem regardless. I don't think it has to do with specifically the fact that it's dirty or not,
Mhm.
but it's just not as thought out, and I think they know that they'll get a reaction if they're edgy, and so they lean way too heavily on the fact that they're edgy, and they don't worry about actually being more creative and being clever to get that laugh.
Well, here's that. I feel like inappropriate humor is kind of like, I always feel like, well, anyone can do that.
Yeah.
Anyone can say something outrageous and inappropriate.
Mm-hmm.
But can you generally come up with something creative that's hilarious?
Yeah.
To me, those are two different things.
Yeah.
Like, I still watch the old D. Martin, Jerry Lewis duos when they had their own show.
Mm-hmm.
They're hilarious. Like, and everything they do is clean, and it's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't even get half that type of humor today without someone at someone's expense or inappropriate. And I think that's what we're missing in comedies is this genuine, true creativity. I mean, the Ghostbusters. I go to that movie because that was a movie I grew up. That I didn't even know was a comedy until I got older. Like I remember.
Talk about RoboCop because you're
Oh,
really
yeah.
into that movie.
Yeah, RoboCop is interesting. I never watched it as a child. Thank goodness. I think my parents did a good job.
Goodness.
But I was drawn to it because I was listening to some stuff about it. The director was drawn to RoboCop because he went to school for theology and he was interested in the concept of a man who died and he comes back as a robot. And what's interesting about RoboCop is, first of all, the name of it is called RoboCop. If you think this is supposed to be a serious movie, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
That's a cheesy movie title.
Yeah.
RoboCop. That's like something you'd find in like the movie bin.
Well, didn't they? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Isn't that what they tried to do with the? Was it a remake or a sequel that they made like a few years ago?
Yeah, in 2014 they tried to make RoboCop super serious. I'm like, it's called RoboCop. Come on, guys, don't take it serious. It's called RoboCop. But anyways, the guy who presented or took the material and made something out of it, he's serious about theology, but he's also very serious about political issues and satire. And so he took the material and knew exactly what it was. You can't take it seriously. Well, let's make it a political satire, and also let's have some deep theological concepts in it. And you have this really bizarre, deep, thoughtful, awkwardly humorous, over-the-top violence movie that actually says things that actually are relevant to this very day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that's weird. Like, there's no one who can plan that. Like, obviously the guy who pitched it, and then the director who made it his own vision. There's no way you can pitch that movie and someone's like, yeah, that's a winner. Like, I honestly have no idea how that movie got made.
Yeah.
But there's so many different levels to it that it's really quite a deep film. And it predicted the downfall of Detroit through crime.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's very fascinating. And the violence in the movie is not just violence for the sake of it. It's actually a satire kind of talking about the extreme violence that's going on in the world. That's why it's so extreme. So everything in RoboCop is purposeful, but it's also humorous. And it's just very bizarre. And I appreciate the movie a lot, but I'm so glad I didn't watch it as a kid. But it was so funny because there was a time period when I was a kid where they kept making toys from rated R movies.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually had a RoboCop
Which is
toy.
an interesting strategy.
Yeah, I had a RoboCop action figure, which was one of my favorite toys growing up, and I had no idea that it was a part of a movie.
They have a ton of Deadpool.
Yeah, for kids.
Deadpool toys, yeah.
Yeah, but there was a weird time during like the mid to late '80s to early '90s where they made all these rated R films and they made kids toys.
Yeah.
And so I have all these old toys in my toy box. My parents' house. These boxes.
I'm glad that you clarified that it was at your parents' house, because
Yeah,
I imagined you going home and opening your toy box that you still have.
Yeah, but I don't know.
This is my toy box. I realized I haven't even played with them in a few years.
Yeah. Well, but anyways, the whole point with RoboCop is that, is it the best movie ever? Absolutely not. But the thing is even a movie like RoboCop from the 80s has more substance and depth in it than the average movie today.
Yeah.
You see a movie, if they ever made a movie called RoboCop that was that cheesy, it would lack all the depth of RoboCop.
Yeah.
It'd be a completely shallow film that you forget 2 hours after you watch.
Yeah.
And that's what we get most of the time. We get these movies where you don't even remember what it's like. The Fast and Furious movies, have you seen those?
No, I've
Okay,
not. I've not.
I can't remember any of them. Like I know I've seen most of them. I didn't see the last one, but they're coming in with a spin-off with just The Rock and the guy from Transporter.
Well, there's a certain amount of movies that I see the trailers for, and I can just tell, like, that doesn't have any substance that I'm looking for.
Yeah, and so unfortunately, but those are the movies, and Fast and Furious is a billion-dollar franchise per movie right now. It makes that much money.
Well, here's what makes me sad is I think I don't want to repeat myself because I know I talked about this a little bit in the last podcast, but with the beginning of Marvel, I thought it was great when you first started seeing. I did talk about this last week when you first start seeing the superheroes you've known all your life start interacting on screen. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then we saw the Avengers, and I feel like that's all we needed, and then I was satisfied and didn't need it again.
Yeah.
And it would be like so. What was it? The X-Men. First of all, I think X-Men as a franchise has been, even though the timeline is
It's up and down.
bonkers, but I think that's fine. I think that's the cool thing is that they don't care. They're like, whatever, we're gonna make good movies, and we don't care if our timeline doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
That Marvel would never do because Marvel has to be down to a science. But it's like I don't care if all of your movies make sense coherently. I want each individual movie to matter. So what's it called? The second one of the prequel series, Days of Future Past.
Okay.
That's like one of the most fun superhero movies I've ever seen, and it was everything you wanted. And they had, they brought Hugh Jackman back, which he'd been in the previous one, but just a small cameo.
Sure.
But he's one of the main characters now with this new group of X-Men that we've grown to love, and so it was so cool. And then you got to see the old cast and the new cast, and they're going back and forth through time, and it was so much fun. But I had my fill, and I don't really want to see another one.
Yeah.
So if they continue to make that same movie over and over and over again, I'd be done with it,
Yeah. Well, I totally agree with you on that. I think that's the problem with Marvel. It's like, oh, what now? What are they gonna do? And I've seen every single one of them because I like comic book movies.
Mm-hmm.
But my favorite comic book movies are not. Iron Man 1 and Winter Soldier. Like those are
everybody likes Winter Soldier, and I honestly don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get why everyone likes it so much.
Well, I think it's a perfectly edited film. As far as pacing goes, it's flawless in its delivery. It has that right balance of serious, fun, action that when you sit down and you watch it, it's one of the fastest going movies.
A lot of people say it's their favorite. A lot of people say it's their favorite MCU movie.
Yeah.
And I just don't get that. I think Iron Man, with the exception of the third act, is a pretty decent movie regardless of the fact that it's a superhero movie or not. Like, it's just a really good movie.
Yeah.
Tony Stark, certainly it got worse as the movies went on. Like, he seems significantly more two-dimensional now than he did before.
Well, the first Iron Man is not really a kid's movie.
It's just a good movie, and it's got good characterization. I really feel the chemistry between him and Pepper. Like, I understand it.
Yeah.
And he's just a very in-depth character.
Yeah.
And I like that. It feels very real and genuine. But I feel like with every subsequent movie from that point on, slowly every character started becoming like a cardboard cutout version of themselves. That it didn't feel like a real person anymore. And then you watch Infinity War, and Infinity War was fun, kind of, but I watched it a second time, and I remember when I watched it, it just felt really disingenuous. Is that the word?
Yeah.
One of those two.
Well,
but like when Iron Man's making the jokes about the wizard guy, when he's talking about Doctor Strange or whatever, it doesn't feel like these are crazy stakes going on, and they're popping off Disney Channel humor. And I'm just like, this doesn't feel like the same as the beginning did, and I'm so bored of it. And Spider-Man Homecoming was okay. Some people said it was the best Spider-Man movie, and I don't understand them at all. This guy, High Top Films on YouTube, does video essays. He did a video essay on how it was an okay film. It was a really bad Spider-Man movie, though, for what Spider-Man represents.
It's Ferris Bueller, too.
Right. They were trying really hard and pushing that John Hughes kind of theme. But I saw the trailer for the new Spider-Man,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously I like Spider-Man a lot. Like he's my guy. But I saw this new trailer and I was like, man, I mean, I'm gonna see it because it's Spider-Man, but it really looks like what I feel like Birdman was portraying superhero movies as. You've seen Birdman, right?
Oh yeah.
But they portrayed superhero movies as like action porn, essentially. They're just giving these nerds everything they want, and there's just explosions and helicopters and huge CG villains and stuff like that, but no real depth or meaning or
Yeah, I think I think you're
reflective
absolutely
thoughts.
right. I feel like a lot of movies today, or especially where Marvel is now,
Yeah.
where it started, it's for children. Like it somehow switched.
But even
To
movies
kids.
for children used to mean so much more. Like Jordan Peterson has a lecture series on Pinocchio.
Yeah.
And
The depths of Pinocchio. Well,
yeah, and like a
Yeah.
bunch of like older kids movies that like had real meaning to it, because that's how you teach kids a lot of basic truths, is through stories and
Yeah.
books and movies and stuff like
Well,
that.
let
And
me
so
let
now
me-
they're just super shallow, and I feel like we have a lot of like people growing up not caring to think.
well, let me rephrase that. They're targeted for children as
Like
consumer marketing.
mindless.
No, like for example, I think there's a whole group of people in Marvel who say like, all right, it's Infinity War, it's Avengers movie. That means we can sell a lot of toys. Okay.
Well, it's
And-
just become Disney Channel completely
Yeah.
because they can sell toys
Mhm.
and it'll keep your kids occupied. That's all it is. It's
Yeah.
just for your kids to turn their brains off so you can go in the other room and do whatever you
Like,
want.
The thing is that if you sit down and you start really asking what is the story being told in Avengers Infinity War,
Mhm.
it's quite disturbing because they've even admitted in the interviews that Thanos, they try to form the story as if Thanos was the good guy.
Mhm.
And so when you watch the movie, Thanos gets a lot of screen time,
Mhm.
and he gets a lot of understanding of what his motives are, and
Mhm.
they try to make his motivation sound like it's almost noble. It's
Yeah.
like really wiping out half of everyone is
Yeah.
a good thing. And the thing is that it's like there's so many inconsistencies
Mhm.
because we even brought up in our conversation, well, why didn't he just wish to double all the resources?
Yeah, that's the
Instead
quick
of-
hole that you can poke, because he can do anything in the universe.
Yeah.
They should have said that he can wipe out anything he wants, because to say he can do anything would
Yeah.
be like, well, okay, well then why couldn't he just make double the resources?
Yeah.
If he can truly do anything.
Yeah, and it's like because he's evil. He's evil,
Right.
but the way they portray him is like, well, like I can't tell you how many times
He's
I
an
heard people.
intergalactic sociopath.
Yeah, like I can't tell you how many times I heard people say like, well, Thanos wasn't that bad. Like he kind of had a good idea. I'm like, well, I'm glad you don't have the Infinity Gauntlet.
Right.
Because it's like he's evil, but like when you start looking at the storyline, what is the story of Infinity Wars? What is the message that kids should take away from it? And you start thinking about it, you're like, well, I'm not quite sure.
Well, I think that's the best they've done as far as a message, probably, because I think ultimately you're supposed to know, hopefully, that Thanos is wrong, and their whole point is the big thing that it relies on, and a lot of people got mad at it, but I think it made sense because they were at least consistent, which was they could have easily killed Vision and destroyed the stone, but they didn't. Because Captain America had the line said, "We don't trade lives, or else
Yeah.
we're just like Thanos." Because Thanos is killing these people so these other people can survive.
Yeah.
And if we kill Vision, that's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just on a smaller scale, but it's still a human life.
Yeah.
And it was cool to say like, a human life is a human life. Like
Yeah.
whether we're talking about one or this
Yeah.
many.
Yeah. Well, Captain America. That's why I love Captain America. Is because he actually has the best message out of all the Marvel movies.
Right.
Although I don't know what happened with Civil War. I thought that was a big mess. But
So what's the worst?
I just pretend that movie didn't take place. But occasionally they have good messages. But like for example, The Dark Knight. I don't know how much time we have, but can I talk about The Dark Knight for just a moment?
Yeah.
What is the message of The
We have
Dark
time, by the way.
Knight? Okay. The Dark Knight is borderline nihilistic. And let me explain to you why. Is what was the moral point before you see The Dark Knight Rises? Because The Dark Knight Rises solves a lot of the problems, but what is the point that the Dark Knight is trying to convey?
I'm going to disagree with you because I think there is a point.
Well, but here's the thing: is that there's a lot of points being made, but the thing is that the Joker was an agent of chaos. He was trying to show that order is made to be destroyed, and that people put all their salvation and structure.
Well, he was a nihilist. He didn't think that the world was worth saving.
Right, and I say it's borderline nihilistic, okay? Because well, let me build it to the point here.
Okay.
So the Joker, his whole point is that he wants to show that order is a false system that should fall because it's a fraud, it's a joke, and he also is built on the idea that if you give someone a day that's bad enough, that he can make him just like himself, which is Harvey Dent. Okay, and he proves that point. They talk about Caesar, about if you live long enough, you might become the villain and all that kind of stuff. But then it's the end of the movie, okay, where Batman and Commissioner Gordon are faced with a problem because they just defeated the Joker. Batman didn't kill him because of his rules. He's now going to be sent off to Arkham Asylum, whatever. Harvey Dent grabs Commissioner Gordon's family and puts a gun up to his kid's head. Batman, who is not supposed to kill people, pushes Harvey Dent out of a building and he dies. And then what is their solution to this is to lie so that the Joker can win, or so that the Joker doesn't win. And so the way that the Dark Knight ends is that they actually decide to build a system of order on lies, which the Joker actually, in some ways, by them doing that, they kind of lose. They kind of lose.
I didn't think about that.
And it's not until The Dark Knight Rises that you realize that they did lose.
Yeah.
That The Dark Knight was not the heroes winning. It was actually them losing.
Yeah.
Because the very thing that sinks Gotham is the letter written by Commissioner Gordon admitting the lies that built the system of order that kept everyone safe. And that ultimately comes back and destroys Gotham and almost completely destroys it.
Well, I also think...
But I'm saying by itself, without having The Dark Knight Rises explaining that, before that even came out, what was the takeaway message of The Dark Knight?
Well, I think you're looking at... My opinion would be, I think you're looking at the movie too objectively, because I think what differentiates art from propaganda is art has the ability to be interpreted.
Yeah.
And can be, you could see, two different people could see the same movie and interpret two different things out of it. Like, have you ever seen Three Billboards?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to spoil the ending, but the ending is I'll just say it kind of could... You could take a lot of different things from the ending of it.
Yeah.
And some people I know don't really understand it, but I think it's very... that's the whole thing, is that it's interpretable.
I understand what you're saying, but Christopher Nolan agreed with me because that's how he wrote the third movie.
Really?
Yeah. If you watch the third movie, that he realized that the good guys were making the wrong decision at the end.
Right.
But without him ever bringing in the third film, before that, what was the message of The Dark Knight? You know what I'm saying? If Christopher Nolan had died and they never made the third movie, what would be and then it's up for interpretation.
Yeah.
But because Nolan actually made the third one, and that turned out my theory was right, that they actually lost at the end by actually doing something that villains do, which is building a false system of lies, that it comes back and haunts them. And I'm actually glad. The Dark Knight Rises, a lot of people say it's the worst one out of the three. It's actually, sometimes it's my favorite one.
Yeah.
Because it actually pulls everything from the previous two movies into an understanding of what it all meant.
Yeah.
And very few trilogies actually cohesively do that. And that is why the Dark Knight trilogy is one of my favorite trilogies of all time, because of the third movie. I believe the third movie anchors the first two, and without that, you don't really understand what the point of it is.
Yeah, I'd be curious. I'd be interested to have you and you've met Trey.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to have you and Trey on the podcast to talk about it. I love the Dark Knight trilogy. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Trey does not.
Yeah.
Like, he thinks Batman Begins is okay. He thinks Dark Knight is pretty good, but he, like, hates.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't speak for him, but I know that he really does not like The Dark Knight Rises that much, or certainly thinks the hype is overrated. But I don't get that, because I think...
On Rises or The Dark Knight with the Joker?
Dark Knight Rises.
Okay.
He thinks it's super overrated. But I remember thinking, when The Dark Knight Rises, like the trailer came out and the ad campaign for it started coming out.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, you know, I'm gonna see it because I'm curious, but I just remember how great The Dark Knight was and being like, I don't think there's any way that they could follow it correctly at all. Like it's like, cause, and not only was The Dark Knight great to follow, but also a lot of third movies in a trilogy suck anyways, because it's hard to wrap up a trilogy.
It is, yeah.
And so they had a big task on their hands, and I think they pulled it off as well as anybody could have ever.
Yeah.
And I think it's almost debatable to talk about whether The Dark Knight or The Dark Knight Rises is a better movie. I think an argument could be made for both.
I think all three of them are brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
The worst thing about the series is Christian Bale.
Wow.
I'll just be honest.
Christian Bale.
I'll just be honest with you. I could totally have seen them casting someone better.
Why don't you like Christian Bale?
I just like I said earlier. I feel like in real life, I know Christian Bale's borderline crazy. You know, he's all.
Well, I know he gets
way into his
characters.
But I just
certainly physically.
I just felt like I didn't like his Bruce Wayne. I liked his Batman. And I know a lot of people say because of the voice they don't like his Batman.
Yeah.
He was a far better Batman than he was a Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
And I feel like I feel like Christian Bale was good at being Batman, but when it came to trying to be Bruce Wayne, he failed.
Yeah.
In fact, there's interviews with him saying that he looks back and he actually sees how he kind of failed as Bruce Wayne. He actually admits this, and that he wishes he had another chance to do it a little differently. And so I'm just being real, like I really think his Batman's good. Mm-hmm. I actually like the fact that he changed his voice, even though people make fun of it all the time. But it worked. It made sense to me. He was an actual detective, but the Bruce Wayne was the little lackluster part. Everything else about the series I thought was just perfect. Yeah. You know, Alfred, Commissioner Gordon, all the villains. They didn't have one bad villain the entire trilogy. I mean, Bane is completely underrated.
So, like, that is I think the biggest turnaround for a villain ever, because Bane was this big, crazy, dumb muscle man.
And Robin.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, and in the comics, too, he's just this dumb muscle man, and suddenly they turn him into this super brilliant, introspective mastermind. Wow, way to turn that around.
Yeah.
And Tom Hardy's only on the up and up with Venom.
Yeah. So I don't know. I really love The Dark Knight. In fact, it's funny. I was telling my friends at the time when The Dark Knight came out. I said, "This is what I would do," and I'm not making this up. I said, "This is what I would do for The Dark Knight, Part 3, whatever." I said I would have it take place shortly after the events of The Dark Knight, and they hire a Deadshot, Will Smith from Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
I was like, what if they made a movie where he's actually being hunted? Where they that someone contracts Deadshot to go after Batman, and there's a mystery the whole time of who did it, and then you find out the actual villain of the movie is actually Ra's al Ghul's daughter. Like, that was my idea for how I would do the third one. So when I'm watching The Dark Knight Rises, I'm like, it's like I got half of it right.
That's pretty funny.
Because that was going to be my plot twist for what I would do for Part 3, to tie it back to Batman Begins. But I love Christopher Nolan.
That was a pretty good twist that no one expected.
Yeah, it was great.
What's your favorite movie?
I used to have favorite movies, but I don't have them anymore because there's so many.
What used to be? What was your last remembered favorite movie?
In the 90s, in high school, my last favorite movie was The Last of the Mohicans with Daniel Day-Lewis.
Oh, I have that. I have not seen it yet.
Yeah, and I just thought the movie was absolutely beautiful. Every shot was just beautiful. The story was something that leading up to the end I thought was very powerful. To most people, it's probably very boring and dry. Mm-hmm. But that used to be one of my favorite movies, and then I think I had a few other ones. I liked Dances with the Wolves. I really liked Indians for a period of time. But then when I got older, my taste started to shift a lot. What really messed me up and got me out of my favorite movie mindset was when AFI released the top 100 movies of all time. Mm-hmm. And I spent like a whole summer just going down to the video store.
Yeah.
which makes me sound really
I was
old.
about to say, that sounds so retro for me.
Yeah, it sounds so old, and I literally rented.
I went to the video store when I was like 6.
Yeah, I literally rented all of the top 100, and I started looking at, what's considered to be the best of the best.
Yeah.
And that's when I really started reshaping what I appreciate about cinema. And eventually now, if somebody asks me, what is my favorite movie? I'm like, there's so many good ones.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if I feel right saying that this is, I don't think you can put that on one movie and say that this represents the best of all time. I don't think, now I do say that it's important to recognize which movies change the industry, but which ones did it for the right reasons. And I think that's why Citizen Kane got #1 on AFI's, because it changed the industry for the better. You can argue The Matrix, while revolutionary, did not add much to the industry other than making really meaningless action sequences look cool.
Yeah.
And so, but that would be my answer. I don't really have one, but I can tell you the films I appreciate, and that's quite a bit. It's quite a long list, but it's a whole other podcast.
Well, I want to ask you about being the DP for my short film Black Roses, and
Sure.
how have you ever been a DP before?
Well, pretty much for most of my stuff.
I mean a DP solely.
Yeah, when I did videos for Pink Goose,
Okay.
I was he never gave me that title, but that's exactly what I was doing. I was having a storyboard.
But they were never like passion projects or anything. They were.
No, but I did make a few of them, little passion projects for myself. But no, and as far as DP, I guess Andrew's videos, I was director and director of photography for those.
How frustrating is it? How frustrating was it to work with me? I'll ask. Feel free to be open about it.
Well, I think every frustration I had was completely forgivable, because it's like, this is your first swing at it.
Yeah.
So I don't hold any. I think you suffer from what I've even been guilty of myself, and I still occasionally had the same thing. Is you get so focused on the vision that your sight becomes narrow.
Yeah.
And you're not able to really read how it's affecting people around you.
Yeah.
And so I think a good example is the what is it, 10-hour shoot that we did at the bar scene or whatever.
Oh yeah, we started at 7 and we left at 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah, I think that should have been done over 2 different days and everything.
Well, I can see what you're saying, and I think I probably did that. I had a lot of probably narrow-mindedness that I need to get through, but with that particularly, I had talked to Sam about it, and I just knew that. I mean, Sam Wolf was so generous to let us use that, and I mean, he put it on the calendar, so because they were renting that place out, and people were paying a lot of money to rent that place out, and so not only was he giving it to us for free to use, but he put it on the calendar so somebody couldn't rent it out that night, and it was a Saturday when people would have rented it out, and so it was actually. I don't know. I wanted to get it all done then because I didn't want to have to take out another day for him to put on the calendar.
Well,
and money.
and I get it. Is that when you're doing something like that, you don't have the budget. You don't have. So there's all these things.
Yeah, it's hard because you're getting so many favors from so many people.
But all I know is this: is that there's certain things that you just learn as you go.
There were things that were funny about doing that late shoot, which was, Shelton had to be super murderous or whatever. And it was like 4 in the morning, and that's when we started doing the one takes or whatever, because we'd be like, one line where he said something like, I feel like love is a little bit like murder. We took one shot, and he was so tired, he just said it so mindlessly, and I was like, that's it. That's what I got. Like, that's the benefit of doing this.
Yeah, but there's just certain things that you pick up on, like I always like watching J.J. Abrams. I don't really like his movies. They don't hold up very well over time.
Yeah.
They get worse over time, actually. They're like...
you didn't like The Force Awakens?
I don't think his movies age well.
Uh-huh.
I think if you watch Force Awakens in 5 more years, you'll be like, oh, okay. Like you know whose movies actually age well? And I won't get this a whole other conversation, is Zack Snyder movies.
Yeah, we've already talked about
I know, but like most people look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, watch Watchmen again. Just sit down and watch it again.
Dude, I haven't even seen it yet.
Yeah, and the thing is that his movies, like Man of Steel, age great. And I actually think some of his movies will be better appreciated later than when they came out. But anyways, that's enough of that. But J.J. Abrams, is really good at making a movie of what it needs to be for its time,
Yeah.
but not making a timeless movie.
Yeah.
He's not good at that. But one of the things I take notes for JJ, and because I tend to be very insensitive myself, because I can be very focused on the project, and I can just seem almost kind of like I don't care about the people around me. And it's not that at all. I'm just like, man, I want to get this thing done. I want to do it right. But JJ shows that on the first day of shoot, he always thanks everybody. On the last day of shoot, he thanks the whole team. He goes out of his way to thank individual people. Tom Cruise, at the end of every day, will personally go up and thank every single person. Yeah, thank every single person on the set. And people like working with Tom Cruise, even though they might think he's a little crazy.
Yeah.
But because he knows how to deal with people. And ultimately, what I realized, I saw something the other day about Edward Norton on why he didn't get the Hulk cast as the Hulk in the Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
And it basically boiled down to the fact that he's hard to work with.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And,
I mean, he tried to completely rewrite the Incredible Hulk, and stuff happened where they took, like, eventually, because they just wanted to not deal with it, they were like, yeah, we'll film your version. So they filmed everything that he wanted, but they cut, like, everything that he wanted out of it and basically kept their own version.
Yeah.
So when he saw it for the first time, he was like, I'm not working with you guys anymore.
Well, and then he actually met with Josh Whedon, and he's basically like, yeah, we already hired Ruffalo because we don't want to work with you.
Yeah.
And what I realized when you listen to those stories is that in the
It's too bad. I liked him as a Hulk.
I thought it was good too. I like him better than Ruffalo actually.
Yeah.
But the thing is that one of the things that gives you a career in the industry is how you treat people and how you're aware of things. Like, now don't get me wrong, it's possible to not even care about people and do really well. James Cameron is a perfect example of this because he's one of the worst people to work with because he doesn't care about the people around him. He only cares about the vision.
Yeah.
And if you're in the way of the vision, you're probably going to get fired. Okay? And if you're an actor, you're probably going to hate him if you get on his bad side.
Well, he also doesn't care that Jack and Rose could have fit on the same door. He doesn't care about that.
Which one?
Titanic?
Oh, yeah, okay.
They could have fit. I want to say fat because it's past tense, but they could have fit on the door.
Oh, yeah.
I feel dumb for saying that.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, I like Cameron because his mind is brilliant.
Yeah.
But he has a history of being absolutely insensitive. So I think that's one of the things that I say, it's something that we both struggle with. But I think when you're first learning the process, you're so focused on learning the process that the things around the process are of less importance naturally. Yeah. Which can cause you to come across a little bit as a jerk. And I've been there. I still struggle with it. Because when I'm learning something, you can talk to people who know me. I'm just, and I need people to kind of like, hey James, don't forget to pay for the pizza. Yeah. Type of, oh right, and remember to thank him.
Right.
So, but anyways, that's my 2 cents.
Okay.
But I enjoyed overall working on the film. But you asked the hard critical questions.
Oh no, I agree with you. I mean, there were things that I got stuck on that overall I don't know if they really mattered so much. But I know from working on, because I wrote the screenplay that you've read either some or most of. I spent like a year and a half working on it. That's the longest I've worked on a script so far. But in the middle of that year and a half, a few times I would take like a month or 2 long break and then come back to it. And then I'd have fresh eyes to be able to see it, because you get such tunnel vision when you're working on something for so long and you can't see it any other way. But then when you leave and you come back to it, you're like, oh, that's not very good. And it would obviously work better this way. And so I think if I would have had more time with Black Roses, I would have seen a lot more of those, because that was kind of a...
It was a rush script.
Yeah. Well, and it was just because I really wanted to work on something. And so that was one of those, I basically sat and racked my brain for a day and a half. Yeah. Trying to be like, what would be a good idea for a short film? It wasn't something that like just came to me in a vision. It was something that I sought out,
Yeah. Well, and the thing is too, this is one thing that
which I don't think it's bad.
Well, here's the thing is that, and it's not bad because it's, at the end of the day, what is the price tag on experience in doing something? And you realize most people don't write scripts, and most people don't make them, actual into film.
Right.
So, what you've acquired by going through that process is priceless. And
Oh yeah.
that making that short film for you is more valuable than 4 years of college.
Well, that's the thing is I try to always be doing something that's teaching me more things. Like, so I just got this mixer board, so I hope that this audio sounds okay.
It should.
But I'm gonna try to be over this because I just got it like 2 days ago. I'm gonna try to be learning more about it, and so I'm learning about a mixer, a new microphone, something I wouldn't have been learning about for who knows how long had I not been doing this podcast and trying to constantly learn things.
Yeah.
It's a cool thing we said about our jobs is that we're constantly learning things that no one would care about regardless.
Well, I used to think this way when I was younger, but I never believe anymore that what I'm doing is the best thing that I'll ever do. I see everything that I do now.
It's all learning.
Is always the next step to the next thing I'll do. But understanding that when I look back at the steps, I see how far I've really come.
Right.
And that's why I feel bad for the Hollywood child actor, because sometimes the reason why it's so tragic for them is sometimes their best work is with their child and it messes them up. And yet then you have the man who works his whole life to acquire his career. Yeah. And he looks back and he sees nothing but hard work and pride and the child actor who didn't know and understand the world at the time started into this movie, gave it some lines, and they become this huge celebrity and they don't understand reality yet. Yeah. And you're like, oh, that might be the best thing they ever do. Yeah. And it makes them go crazy.
Well, that's I mean, like, to kind of come full circle about what we were talking about in the beginning and having meaning is it's kind of scary a little bit. Like, it's happy for us because it's cheaper to be able to do what we want to do. Yeah. But there is definitely what am I looking for? A value in the fact that Spielberg had to go out and get a Super 8 camera, and he had to enlist his sisters to be his actresses in the movies that he would create all the time. I mean, I did stuff like that when I was a kid. I mean, my first movie ever is right here. This is the first film I ever made when I was 3 years old.
Sure, it's great.
Yeah, it is fantastic. It's called Dino Boy 3. Okay. Because I was convinced that if you made a movie the third installment before making the first two, that it would be in 3D.
Brilliant. Okay.
It didn't work out, which is too bad.
It's probably for the best.
I remember the premiere in my living room when I was watching it. I was like, what? Yeah. And then my mom had to explain to a sad me.
Yeah, well, hey, but that's the thing too, is that the best way to live life is by phases that connect to ultimately, something greater. And the thing is, you also have to be very careful to not define what that greater achievement is. Because almost everyone I talked to who's been successful, where they ended up was not exactly what they planned. But everything they did before that led to...
Well, you just got to keep doing something. Jordan Peterson talked about that when he said he does this self-authoring program. Yeah. And he says a lot of people will send stuff to him being like, I bought this, and I just feel like I wouldn't be any good at it, so I've never actually gotten into doing it or gotten around to it. And he says, well, just do it. Just do it no matter what.
Just do it.
And he says, because you can write something. Maybe you're not a good writer. He said, but if someone put a gun to your head and said, write an essay, it doesn't matter if it's good or not, you would have something written. And then you'd have something. And then you could work from there to build off of it. Exactly. And so it's just don't worry about not doing something because, I'm not good enough. Well, you'll never get good enough if you don't keep working at it and keep doing something. Like, I have, I've tried to reinvent this YouTube channel that we're currently recording on right now, but I've had it since I was 11 years old, and I started making these videos on it, and I still kept them up because I wanted them as a record, so I have a whole playlist of all my old videos, and they're really bad. I have a warning about how bad they are. They're so hard to watch. Yeah. But I keep them up because they're important, that they're learning experiences. Yeah. And I just kept getting better and better and better and working on what I was doing.
Yeah. And here's the thing, the ability to achieve a position where someone calls you a professional is through the process of suffering, through the process. Right. To acquire the level of being a professional. Like every great writer, do you really think the first thing they wrote was amazing? Yeah. Of course not. You know.
Well, when I say yeah, I mean no. I was like
Yeah.
acknowledging that
Yeah.
I was listening to
Yeah,
you.
it's like now some people just naturally have some, you know, spirit right out of the get go.
Yeah.
You know, and that happens. You know, they're called super geniuses of the
One
age.
hit wonders.
Or like, you know, which one was it, Mozart or Beethoven? I think who just learned music like that. You know, but
Well, I don't know. Beethoven's freaking crazy. He's the one that sawed the legs off his piano because you know he went deaf
yeah,
before he died,
exactly. Yeah.
and he wrote one of his symphonies when he was completely deaf. He put his piano on the ground and just listened or felt the vibrations. That's insane.
Yeah, but that's different level stuff that most people never get to. But you know,
It's just dedication.
yeah, it's
to the
dedication.
craft.
But some people are just naturally gifted in that area, and the first time that they pull something out, it's great.
Yeah.
But then you have to watch out for pride, arrogance, and the things that can destroy you.
Do you think that Ben Affleck and Matt Damon wrote Good Will Hunting?
I'm not that impressed by the script, so I don't.
Oh, really?
No, I'm impressed by the acting in the movie because if they didn't have Robin Williams,
You don't think it would have been nearly
No.
as good?
it was the chemistry between Matt Damon and Robin Williams. Everything
Pretty
else,
good movie though.
everything else, the writing seemed kind of on the nose. Like I could,
Because they won the Oscar for writing.
yeah. To me, the writing was okay, but it was. I'm not quite sure why I got. Probably just because of circumstance, or like, oh, these
Yeah.
two guys in college wrote it. That's a story.
Well, I know
And-
a lot of people don't think that they actually wrote it because they
Well,
they came out of nowhere.
They won the
and-
Oscar, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, no, so here's the thing about the Oscars, okay? It's not about quality. It's not about quality, Jackson.
It's too bad.
It's about political maneuvering within the industry.
I feel like the Oscars is really close to my heart because
Uh-huh.
I've grown up watching it, and my first podcast, my 13 episode podcast, was me and these two other guys starting with the first Oscars, and we watched all of them, and we dove into the meaning of them and why we think they won compared to other ones. And certainly at least the first few were just like, even though they're almost 100 years old, they were just like genuinely really good movies. The
Yeah.
first movie's called Wings, and it's a silent movie, and it was the first silent movie I've ever seen in
Yeah.
its entirety. And when we watched it, and it started off, I was like, oh, this is going to be kind of hard. But we watched the whole thing, and ultimately our consensus was, this is still a good movie.
Yeah.
Like, I would suggest it to you. Like, it's
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah.
And so I think
Well-
it certainly started in a good place, but slowly, more and more, it's become
And I can't speak to the Oscars as how they were 50 years ago. Okay, I just,
like
what-
7 years ago.
yeah, when you look at how things are run now, like when Anne Hathaway won,
9 years ago.
Yeah. like when Anne Hathaway won for Les Miserables, what is it, the musical?
You don't think she should have?
No, I felt like, man, there must have been a lot of political maneuvering behind the scenes.
Damn, man, I love that Les Mis with her.
But the thing is that no, I feel like a lot of, because if you look at the lineup, they're always great performances.
I disagree with you, man. I love Les Mis.
But I think a lot of it has to do with some political maneuvering.
Well, I mean,
because who votes ultimately for the winner in the Oscars? It's the Academy, right?
yeah.
You're not saying that they're not a little bit influenced or swayed by.
Well, I mean, you look
know.
at it. It's just so I am thinking about doing a video on this. I'm afraid to because I don't want to get hate for it. But I want to do a video about how crazy it is that Black Panther is nominated for Best Picture and Logan wasn't. So almost the exact same political climate, you know, a year apart from each other. And I went back and watched them both again 2 nights in a row. So one night I watched Black Panther, took notes on it, then I watched Logan and took notes on it. And I forgot how incredibly good Logan is, and I still was not impressed by Black Panther. I read an article, the guy who wrote American Psycho, the guy who wrote the book and did a couple of other movies, he was talking about it, and he said, it's crazy that this was nominated for Best Picture. And he said it wasn't a horrible movie, but I have not met one person who genuinely thinks it's that good of a movie. Like, it's just a superhero movie, and it's fine, I guess.
Yeah, it's a fun movie. It's a fun.
I think it's almost a I don't know.
Well, here's the thing about Black Panther. Fantastic soundtrack. I absolutely love the soundtrack on that movie. I think it's brilliant. Another thing,
It certainly didn't stand out to me.
the Killmonger theme is amazing. And then
I watched it like 3 days ago. I
yeah,
can't even remember.
just listen to the soundtrack, and the soundtrack is great. Number two, the design.
Also, it's socialist propaganda. I've made the decision.
Well, here's another thing. The design of Black Panther, absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely amazing. Outside of that, the story was generic. It had all of the Marvel tropes to it.
Yeah, generic. Yeah.
But,
so it didn't. I don't think it stood out as a superhero movie.
But the thing is that what makes it so unique is a couple of things. Is that one, before Black Panther, you had the Falcon, Captain America's buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, Blade. Like I'm trying to, as far as Marvel movies go.
Yeah.
Maybe War Machine. You could argue with what's his name, the actor who plays War Machine in Iron Man 2. He won an Oscar for Rwanda. Great actor. I forget his name though. But the thing is that the reason why this is getting, some of it you could say it's it's identity politics, but at the same time.
Oh, I think it's totally identity politics.
But I do think there is a level of historical importance now. Whether or not that historical importance deserves it to be nominated, that's another question. But it is a historical stepping stone for a lot of reasons. But should that render it worthy of an Oscar nomination? And I think that's a worthy debate. I actually think that's a legitimate. I think that people who say no, I don't think that they're racist.
Right.
But I do think there's weight on people to push it out there. Because of the fear of becoming,
well, the thing is
racist.
The reason I think it totally has to do with identity politics and it's not historical is that I have never thought of a movie as a black movie or a white movie until Black Panther, and they started their ad campaign was finally a black movie for black people, and I was like, what are you talking about? Like I've never watched a movie and been like finally, or I mean obviously it would be finally because there's a lot of whitewashed movies, but. I don't know, the race of the people in the movie has never had any effect on me whatsoever.
Yeah, but, okay.
Denzel Washington is one of my favorite actors. He's in a million movies.
But here's the thing: is it Oscar caliber? I tend to say no, but here's why it's historic. Okay, in the early 2000s, I wrote a screenplay it's called based off of a 1950s comic book series called Turok. Okay, it was made into a video game in the 1990s. I submitted this script. It was called Turok. I think Dinosaur Hunter, which is based off of the original concept. I submitted to United Arts, the people who made James Bond, and this was their reply. It says, we really like the script, it's good. There's a lot of potential. We definitely want you to send us other future projects that you have in mind. However, there has never been a Native American actor who's ever been in a movie that has made the amount of money that it would cost to make this film.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you understand what's going on there?
I get what you're saying with that.
Right, but I
don't think that applies to African Americans because.
But it does because it's like.
My point was that I've seen at least at this point in time I've seen a million movies with and a big amount of black people like Spike Lee's movies always have a lot of black people and they do really well. Spike Lee's movies are incredible.
Right, but the thing is, how much money did Black Panther make? It made over $1 billion. That's huge.
Spike Lee's movies make a lot of money, but they're just not superhero movies.
Spike Lee. When did Spike Lee ever bust the $1 billion?
Okay, well, listen.
Club? No.
But we were talking about how that's dumb though, because we were talking about how blockbusters are ruining passion projects because good cinema is a risk and it won't be a blockbuster. Freaking Blade Runner 2049 didn't get a huge reception.
Right.
But it was a great movie.
It was, yeah.
Making so much money really has no effect on how good the movie was.
I'm not an advocate that Black Panther should be nominated, but I'm arguing that it is a historical film.
Do you think? I think this could have been made at any time though. But I think if Spider-Man, I think if Spider-Man 2000 was it 2000 when it came out, right? Or 2001?
What?
The original Spider-Man? Or no, it was 2002.
Yeah. Okay.
The original Spider-Man, if it came out and the cast was mostly black, or if, say, Spider-Man was black, I don't think that it would have done, significantly... I don't think that it would have been... I can't form a sentence. I don't think that it would have done poorly.
Well, but here's the thing. But this goes back to the story I was telling you.
Like, sure, you could say it's historical in the fact that no black led movie has done as well before.
No, but here's the thing.
But I don't think that makes it special, because I think you could have made Black Panther 5 years ago and it would have had the same reception.
But the Hollywood system would not have allowed that Spider-Man to be made in the early 2000s.
Because you think Hollywood is racist?
Well, it goes back to the email that I got from United Arts.
So not racist, but they don't think that a black-led movie would have been.
They're indirectly racist because they base it off of
what would make money.
Ethnicity. Because their conclusion, based off of the data, was we can't make Turok, even though it's a comic book property, and comic book properties were starting to take off, because it stars a Native American. And to date, there is no movie starring a Native American who has made even close to the budget that's needed to make this film work.
Yeah, see, I think that's dumb, because that doesn't make any sense to me.
But that's the side of Hollywood that I think that you're kind of missing on this argument.
Maybe I'm being blindsided because I legitimately don't understand racism. Like, I can't get why people would ever make any judgments based off of race. It's so bananas to me. Mm-hmm. So I remember when you told me about that, and told me it was because a Native American led movie had never made that much money, and I was like, that doesn't. I don't feel like that's the effect. Like, if you made a movie with a star, a Native American, and it didn't make much money, I don't think in any way that I would get from that, oh, Native American led movies don't make money. I would be looking at, I would look at every other factor before I would ever go there, if I ever did go there.
Yeah, but the thing
and
is,
not because I don't want to be offensive, because that doesn't make sense to me.
But that's you. That's who you are, and that's good that you're not racist and you don't see things, which is great. And the thing, but the problem is that there are systems in place in Hollywood that come from a very racist background that are still indirectly in place. Which the reason why Black Panther is so monumental is that it went against those structures that would have prevented it from ever being made 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And you gotta look at this too.
Well, they should have written it better.
Is Disney was good for Disney on this one that they made it, but the thing is the fact that it did so well is an indicator that they actually made a good movie that meant something to people.
Was Wonder Woman nominated for anything?
I don't think so. But the thing is that here's the thing, is that when you listen to why Black Panther is so important to the African American community in America, is if you're looking at things based off of ethnicity, and you believe it's important to have a representation of your ethnicity up there. Look at the Marvel lineup. Okay, and what are you going to see? You're going to see all mainly European descent. Is there a Native American superhero up there? I get
what you're saying. I think that is a problem of Hollywood, because
that's the point, and that's why they're pushing so hard on this. Is that they're not just pushing it for the sake of it. First of all, the big movie that was identity politics nightmare was Ghostbusters 2016 with Old Lady Cast. That movie cost Sony money. It didn't do good.
I think the problem is when the ad campaign is about, when you focus too much on the identity, because the thing is, I remember before, when they were going to reboot Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield, before we found out it was Andrew Garfield and it was just talk after Spider-Man 3, I remember them talking about making a Miles Morales movie. I think that was when it was, because Miles Morales was like brand new in the comics, and everyone thought it was like so cool that we finally had a black Spider-Man. And I wasn't that interested in Miles Morales at that time. Now I think he's pretty cool. But at that point I was like, just make Peter Parker black. I don't care if Peter Parker's black. I just think Peter Parker is a more interesting character. I don't care if he's black.
Well,
that's the thing that at first, at first Hamilton was super cool, because the musical Hamilton, they have all these originally white guys played by any ethnicity you want. At first I thought, wow, that's really cool. That, like, because it doesn't matter to me, it's still the same story. I think it's a great musical. But then I think it was when they made Hamilton in Chicago and they were doing auditions for it, and they said a lot of white people were coming to audition, and they put out this thing saying, like, don't audition if you're white. And then everyone got pissed, and they said something like, and I don't remember exactly what they said, so I might be misquoting, but they said something like, don't audition for the leads, because the leads should not be white, or something like that. And I don't think they said it as racistly as I'm making it sound right now. But the whole point was that they I feel like they went too far because it was like, ooh, it doesn't matter what race they are. It's like, okay, cool, we're going in a good direction. And then it was like, as long as they're not white. And I was like, oh, that's, I don't think that is good.
Yeah.
Because now we're not just diverse, we're anti-white.
Well, here's the thing that I'm worried about, and it kind of goes back to some of the postmodern conversations that.
And maybe they didn't intend that.
Yeah, is that there's
but
this, and this is predate all the issues that we're having today. It's what it's called reaction ideology, or in Christianity, reaction theology, where you recognize that something was corrupt and messed up,
mm-hmm.
so then you push and you go to a full extreme. And I feel like Hollywood and our culture today is kind of doing that. It's like, well, we haven't had any representation for African Americans or Native American Indians or even people from Asia, right?
Yeah.
And now they're like, well, now we need to balance it out. We have all these thousands and hundreds of thousands of films with Caucasians, so let's just keep them out of the movies now.
Yeah.
And do it all this way. And it's like, well, by defect, you're doing the same problem from the
You're
past.
going too far the other way.
And
we're like, we need to find middle ground somewhere.
Yeah. And so I think, but the problem is that one of the things you also have to keep in mind too, and the danger of this conversation right now, is that there's so little representation that what Black Panther achieved and what Into the Spider-Verse achieved.
Into the Spider-Verse is a great movie.
Yeah.
I think it totally deserves the nomination it got, and I think it should totally win.
That this is a victory for all people, that Hollywood is willing to make more movies that represent different ethnicities.
Yeah, they had an anime character in there.
Every screenplay I've ever written has always starred minorities in it. Every single one, whether it be Native American, African American. And I realized when I wrote these, over 10 years ago, I was like, man, my movies will never be made. Because I'm interested in making films that star people who don't normally star in film. And
aren't you?
Huh?
Are you half Hispanic?
Yeah,
or?
I'm half Hispanic, but I was.
And half white.
Yeah,
right?
but I was drawn to my material because of history and the fascination of certain topics that I was involved into. And most to me, the most fascinating stuff in history is not European.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I just always forget that, but that's another point, is that like race so doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
Because I remember you said something about it, because you said something about you being Mexican, and I was like, whoa, I just never would have like I guess it didn't come up in my head, but I also never would have. I just don't think about it. I just think about people as people, and I think it's weird to think any other way.
Well, but you have to also keep taking into perspective is that people
wasn't raised that way.
Yeah, people tend to be biased off of things that they've grown up with and they've always liked. Well, you have to admit that a lot of the movies and properties that we were brought up with came from a specific culture that focused on a specific culture. And I really, unfortunately, Mel Gibson made some bad decisions in the 2000s, which we won't get into. But I applauded him for making Apocalypto, which was about the Incas. And I'm like, who would make a movie like this? Like, this was the type of thing that I was wanting to get made.
Yeah.
And he did it. And it was all Indians, or by that, you're not supposed to say Indians anymore, but it's all people that represented the people who were in America before the 1500s and whatnot, and no one would make a movie. And it was about the first arrival of the conquistadors, and to me that was, I'm like, Mel Gibson, I can't believe he made this.
I know everyone hates Louis C.K., but have you ever heard the Louis C.K. bit about Native Americans? It's so funny because it's really true. Yeah. And he's talking about how bananas it is that we call them Indians. Yeah. And he was like, people today refer to them as Indians. Mm-hmm. He was like, we knew immediately that they weren't Indians. Yeah. Like, we knew in a month. Like, Columbus came and he was like, hey, I made it to India. And they were like, no, this isn't India. And he was like, no, but you guys are Indians. Yeah. No, it's a totally different place. And he said, that's why. You're not Indians? They said, no. Yeah. And he goes, you're Indians. And we still call them that. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Crazy. I'm Hispanic, but, I was constantly raised in environment saying, well, I'm part Indian, and that's just my great grandmother is a full-blood Choctaw, I believe. Yeah. I believe. And my dad's, I think, great-grandma. It's either my great-grandma or my great-great-grandma. Yeah, it was full Cherokee and everything. Yeah, and it's like, that's one of those things where, like, okay,
let's stop saying that. It's really, when you really sit down and think about it, it's pretty offensive. You know what I'm saying?
It's offensive? What do you mean?
Well, the whole the term Indian is just like the way.
Yeah, well, I mean,
you know,
it's even more than being offensive. It's just so inaccurate and also confusing because there is a place called India and the people there are called Indians.
Yeah.
So it's just like beyond it being offensive.
Yeah.
It's just confusing.
But
so it's pointless.
But that's why you have to walk carefully with like even with Black Panther because. Well, like for example, the term and the origin of the term Indian is insensitive.
Yeah.
And so we don't think twice about it, but when you switch sides, and you try to get other people's shoes, Black Panther is incredibly important.
Yeah.
But like I said, the real question and debate is, does it deserve to be nominated for an Oscar? That's a different question. But I don't think you can deny how important Black Panther is as
you think so. I guess you're saying that it's important because not for the audience, but it's important now that movie makers know that a movie like that will make money.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I can see its importance there, but I just think as far as the audience, like we've always known that it doesn't matter if there's a black guy in a movie because you think of. Some of my favorite actors of all time are black actors. Morgan Freeman, Samuel L. Jackson, Denzel Washington, like I said
Will
before.
Smith ruled the '90s.
Yeah, there you go.
He saved the world several times. But the thing is, no, it's this movie had to happen, and everyone will benefit from it.
Yeah.
Because it's succeeded. And
do
more
the right thing, not do very well, because that's a great movie. That's I'm pretty sure the majority is African American.
Yeah, but that's the thing is that but the thing is about Black Panther, and the same thing a little bit with Aquaman. DC needed Aquaman to do well because it was they were questioning everything and the fact
what
that
did Aquaman do?
It broke $1 billion. Okay.
And why did they need it though?
Because they were doubting everything they were doing because they were trying to.
Oh, so it had nothing to do with the individuals, just for the sake of DC in general.
For the sake of it, and Jason Momoa represents a new ethnicity also, which is a big deal. But here, which there's not a lot of representation for him.
For the sea creatures?
No, his ethnicity is
What is his ethnicity?
But well, I think
what is his ethnicity?
I can't remember. I don't want to say it because I'm afraid I might butcher it. But
you're gonna butcher the way to pronounce it?
Yeah, the way to pronounce it. But anyways, it's a side point to it. But the thing is,
I don't know anything about this movie.
About Aquaman?
Or the actor.
Just go see it if you want to be entertained for 2 hours. But anyways,
I've just given up on DC.
Yeah,
that's why I don't know anything about it.
But the thing is that the reason why Black Panther was so important is because it was a movie who was doing things that had never been done before for a specific type of audience.
Okay, so here's an opinion. Here's an example right now of an opinion of mine changing.
Yeah.
I completely get, now that you've explained it to me, I completely get why Black Panther is important, and I see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
So, I think it shouldn't have been nominated for an Oscar, and I think that's totally identity politics going on. But I do get that it's important to be made. My just biggest problem with it is that I think Black Panther, I've looked into some of the stories from the comic books that are so cool and so interesting, and I just think it had so much potential, and the story they chose to go with, I just don't think it reached its potential at all.
Well, but here's the thing is that
it was a fine movie. I was started because I hadn't seen it since it came out, and I was thinking, like, I almost thought that it wasn't good at all, and I went back and watched it a week ago, and it was good. It was a good movie.
Yeah.
It was a good superhero movie.
Yeah.
But I just then I watched Logan, and I just thought, wow, Logan. But by the way, I think Logan would be just as good if instead of Hugh Jackman, it was an equally good African American actor. I would like to clarify that I don't think Logan was better because he was white.
Yeah, Idris Elba. Yeah, he could do it.
It's just.
No, seriously, I can totally picture him.
I saw as Wolverine.
Oh yeah, he's intimidating.
He's intimidating, but he's more
classy. If he had claws, I would totally be afraid.
He's more classy. Like everyone wants him to play James Bond,
because he
and I can
dresses
see that.
well. But Hugh Jackman's classy too.
I guess it is because he dresses well.
But the thing is,
we need a more rugged guy.
Yeah, but the thing is that, like I said, you just have to look at it from a different perspective from a different culture who hasn't been represented, who Hollywood has been running away from for years, and they still need to put money. I think they need to make Turok. Not my script. I just want to make Turok. Because, I mean, hey, they want to do my script. That's great. It's still, you know.
Yeah.
But the thing is
I
that
get what you're saying. That is very important because you think of, okay. I totally get what you're saying. I think it's important.
Because there's a lot of things that we don't even think about, like Dances with Wolves.
Opinion changed.
Yeah, Dances with Wolves, for example. The Native Americans were incredibly offended by the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did not know that. But
And-
why? Because they were misrepresented?
Well, yeah, because there was this particular scene where their hunters go off to go, I forget, I think it's hunt, and then the enemy tribe comes in to attack while they're gone,
Mm-hmm.
and it's only because Kevin Costner is there with his guns that he saves the tribe, or whatever.
Yeah.
And they were offended because they're like, well, we would never leave our tribe completely defenseless, and even, you know, like there's like that's not an accurate representation of how we operate and all that kind of stuff. And the thing is, for me watching, what do I know? I'm a kid from Texas, who all I knew was like Abilene, and I you know.
Right, but I don't think that shapes my.
Right, but here's the
shapes
thing.
my opinion on them or
right, but the thing
how
is,
good they are with taking care of their tribes.
but if you're a Native American, and you know your history really well, and you have a lot of pride and details that we don't even know about, and you sit down and you watch the movie, you're like, okay, they really don't understand us.
Right.
It's kind of like, why is it that every single Native American Indian movie that I grew up with, that was trying to show a realistic portrayal.
You keep saying Indian.
Yeah.
You said Native
Yeah,
American.
I know, I butcher it. But why is it that...
You had to say all of it.
Yeah. Why is it they always star a Caucasian? Dances with Wolves, Last of the Mohicans, Daniel Day-Lewis, Geronimo, I think, starring Matt Damon. I mean, it's like if you're part of that particular group in America, you're like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like why couldn't Hollywood make Turok? Because it started.
Yeah, I think when you call race into question,
Yeah.
almost ever,
Yeah.
then it becomes that's when it becomes like not okay, I think. Because the thing is, like, you talk about all these movies and I just never think about the race, but then you think about Hollywood saying, yeah, well, these movies don't make that much money because of the race of the lead actor. I'm like, wow, that doesn't sound true at all.
Yeah.
I think that they are thinking that America is more racist than it is.
Yeah, and if you're part of Hollywood...
Black Panther being the example of that. It broke, you know, the box office.
And the thing is that if you're aware of those things and you're part of... I mean, Spike Lee's been speaking out against that stuff for decades. And what is the big slap back in Spike Lee's face was like, well, Spike, your movies don't make money. Like, that's what they would tell him. And
but
he's
his
like,
movies don't do poorly,
but,
right?
but he, well, not enough for a studio to say, well, let's give Spike Lee
He just doesn't make
$200 million.
blockbusters, I guess.
Right. Well, he's not interested in doing that. But
I love his movies,
but there's a little balance of both. Is that, well, they're kind of right. His movies don't make mega money for the industry.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the industry needs to put money into him because he represents a part of the audience that's being neglected.
Yeah. Have
And
you
so-
seen Do the Right Thing?
No, I haven't seen that. But
Oh,
I've
gosh,
there's
it's
a
so
lot
good.
of movies I need to catch up on.
It's
But
good.
you gotta look at both sides, and when you start doing that, you start to realize the neglect and systems that have been in place. Like, for example, how offensive is how we treated Asians in movies? We would hire a Caucasian actor who had maybe a different eye structure than most people, like the TV show Kung Fu and stuff. Like or even you go back far enough, they would pull back their eyes and stuff like that. And I remember I watched it wasn't even accurate, but like a Bruce Lee movie, I think The Dragon, where he's watching one of these movies with his girlfriend, and he sees an American playing as an Asian man, and it's the most offensive thing ever, and everyone around him is laughing, and he's sitting there going, what? You know what I'm saying? And it's like, that's part of our history, you know what I'm saying? And the thing is that that's there, and that sticks with all those different groups and demographics. And so that's what I'm saying, like, whenever you deal with Black Panther, it's a super, I don't know if you should do a whole podcast on it, but it's a super sensitive one that there is merit in what you're saying, is does it deserve...
The reason I'm afraid to do it is I don't want to be misinterpreted. I don't want people to think that I'm hating on it just because...
Yeah.
Or not only just because I'm not hating on it at all because it has African American actors in it, or that it's a mainly African American movie. I think me and Trey talked about this last week. Chadwick Boseman did a fantastic job in it. What's his name? Michael B. Jordan. I've thought since the first movie I saw him in, which was Chronicle. Have you seen Chronicle?
Mm-hmm.
You need to get that closer to your mouth.
Yes.
The mic. But when I remember seeing him in Chronicle and being like, man, he's gonna be one of the great actors of my time. And I remember seeing him in that, and like the more things I've seen him in, I'm like, I hope that I get to work with him one day. Like he's so good. Like him and Miles Teller, I think, are some of the great actors that are up and coming. So I've always liked him. So I just, the reason I hesitate to make that video is I don't want people to think that I'm throwing out some racist propaganda.
I advise that you don't do it. Because it's such a sensitive topic, because here's the thing, is that...
It would only be against Black Panther being nominated for Best Picture. It's not against Black Panther as a movie itself. I think Black Panther is a good movie.
Yeah.
Or a good superhero movie. I feel the need to clarify.
Yeah. Like for example, I mean, you just have to be careful because, you know, when you see some people on YouTube saying, like, how the white male's being oppressed right now.
Yeah, because there are so...
Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing, is it sometimes gets mixed in with some actual
There's a
racist
reason
people.
why that's so offensive, because to a culture that has experienced oppression for a very long time, to them, that's like not even a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, what are you guys complaining about?
Yeah.
You know, like it's too soon. That's what I'm saying, it's way too soon.
I do think it's important, though. I don't think that I'm, going to become a male rights activist or anything like that. and
It's just too soon. That's all,
I do think, obviously white supremacy is a real thing that's horrible.
Yeah.
But I think we need to be aware of the balance and not go too far on one side. And I don't think the answer to it being too far leaned on one side for so long is to lean exactly the same amount the other way, or still lean too far the other way. I think we need to find the balance in between.
Yeah. Well, to me, from a theological perspective, it has to go to forgiveness, and it has to go with loving and respecting one another.
Well, another thing is that I specifically am not the one who's I'm not Hollywood. I'm not the one who told you can't make that movie because it has a Native American in it. Yeah. I never would have said that if I was one of those guys. Yeah. I would have been like, if it was a great script, I would have been like, this is a great script, let's make it.
well, I appreciate that, but the thing is that, like I said,
because I truly don't believe that if your script was great, that it would have done any I can't form the sentence, that it would have done any poorer had it been for the ethnicity of the main character. Yeah. I truly don't believe that to be the case.
Well, and at the same time...
So I would have put my money on the line.
At the same time, how many times have you seen a bad script that turned out really great because they had the right director and the right cast? Right. So you can make an okay script great, and you can make a great script horrible. Right. There's a lot of movies where like, man, the script was amazing. Right. And then it turns out, and like, like Passengers, I think.
They made freaking Puss in Boots the movie. There's a cat was the lead in it.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So it's all about, it's like, why does anything get made? And I heard some people say that in Hollywood it's a miracle that any movie comes together because of all the things that have to fall into the right place at the right time to make it happen.
We got so many people that could say no along the way.
Yeah, exactly.
And it just takes one no to derail a movie.
From the higher up. So, but like I said, I'm interested, because I've always wondered, part of me has always wondered, what if this wasn't my time, and what if in 10, 20 years I'm actually able to make some scripts that I kind of just tossed away because the industry wouldn't let them be made, and those are the movies I get to later on. Right. And to me, I'm happy with a lot of the changes that are going on in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And to me, I see the good in Black Panther. Now, is it really Oscar contender? No, I don't believe so. But it's really important.
I guess
it is a milestone.
I guess at this point it becomes an Oscar contender because now the Oscars don't have so much to do with was the movie. I mean, freaking Leo DiCaprio got Best Actor for his role in The Revenant, which was so obviously not his best role. Yeah, he's been in so many better roles where he showed himself off so much better. My favorite role of his, which I don't know that anyone would agree with this, and Catch Me If You Can. But that's a great movie,
Yeah.
and he does so fantastically
One of
as
Spielberg's last
Frank
great
Abagnale.
movies. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
One of his last great movies.
And I think if he should have gotten Best Actor for anything, it should have been that movie. So I think that shows that they're just trying to like dot all their I's and cross all their T's with the Oscars now, which is too bad.
It's political.
It's too bad. I mean, and what's his name? Adam Ruins Everything did a whole episode on it. Really doesn't matter how good your movie was. It's about the ad campaign, because they have to go to all these secret parties and everything and give money to the right people to promote it, to be able to get it nominated, which is, it's just too bad.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, the movies that I heard, what is it, the Emmys kind of represent a lot of different things in the Oscars do.
I don't know anything about really any other award show besides the Oscars.
Okay, but never mind. But anyways,
I know the Emmys are TV.
That's all I gotta say about that. But I do, like I said, is Black Panther my favorite superhero movie? No, but I appreciate it for what it is, and there's some things about it that are fantastic. Like I said, I love
Well, you've changed my mind. You've changed my mind. I do think it's really important, and I appreciate Black Panther a lot more now.
Yeah.
Now that you've opened my eyes, and I'm not just saying that. I really do understand.
But I mean, the thing is that if you were born in the '70s and let's say you made it in Hollywood and you were successful.
Yeah.
There was a lot of dynamics of why you would become successful.
Yeah. I just hope they do better stories with, obviously Marvel's not going to stop. So what I hope they do with Black Panther 2 is I hope they find a better story, because you research some of those Black Panther comics and they're freaking good, and they're like edgy, and I guess they also might have been afraid of
yeah, but I think that's true with any like, for example, what movie I've always wanted them to make, right, is The Dark Knight, Frank Miller's Dark Knight. And how I would love for them to do it?
How?
Get Tim Burton back, and Michael Keaton is the old Batman who comes back.
Yeah.
I'm like, if they did that, and
I think they should do Batman Beyond with Michael Keaton as the old guy.
Yeah, either way, bring Michael Keaton. I guarantee you that would be huge, and stick with Frank Miller's material. And I think Tim Burton, if he was willing to do it.
And you know what they should do? They should make the main guy, the young guy in Batman Beyond, they should make him African American.
Well, I mean, hey, that would be. I wouldn't have any issue.
Right.
That's fantastic. Well, they were talking about if they get.
No, they should make him Native American, because you know what? I can't think of any Native American-led movies.
Well,
can you think of one?
Well, Oscar Isaac is actually up for being considered to be Batman in some circles.
Oh, really?
There's all these people who are trying to push names out towards Matt Reeves and Warner Brothers, and one of them is Oscar Isaac, who's actually, he has a Latino or Hispanic. I can't remember.
I think that's something that would really blow people's minds if we just
well, if Oscar Isaac
started blindly casting. That's what they call it in theater, which is a blind cast. So you can have, say, a brother and two brothers who are full blood brothers, and one actor is black and one actor is white.
Yeah.
And they just cast them because they're great actors and they work well together. Mm-hmm. And if you're a good movie, or a good script or whatever, we can get past that. Initially they're like, who's gonna believe that they're really brothers? And it's like, okay, but listen, who is gonna believe that they're really brothers if we see the credits roll in the end and see their last names are different, even if they look exactly the same? Yeah. The point is, when we go to watch a movie, we have a certain amount of our reality suspended and able to get into this and enjoy it. So it's not reality. And here's the thing, if they ever made a Bruce Wayne, if they made the new Batman series take place in modern day time, we're in a different time period than 50 years ago. Yeah. What if the Wayne family was a different ethnicity and Bruce Wayne is a different? I had no problem with that. The problem I had with Black Panther is that I don't think the story was as good as it should have been, and I think it was blown out of proportion for the wrong reasons. Yeah. But I do now get part of the campaign of it being important. Yeah. I do get that. I just think I just feel that I think identity politics is very problematic, and it's a slippery slope that we need to be careful.
It is a slippery, yeah.
It's I'm important, and I what I say matters because I'm this. Yeah. Because I'm this race, I'm this gender, I identify with this sexually. Like, that's not good, and that's going towards a bad place. It should be what I say matters because I'm a human being. Yeah.
Yeah. So as you know,
Because I don't care what a cat thinks.
Yeah. Well.
That was a joke. I thought it would land better.
Now you're gonna get some comments from PETA. So
from some cat lovers.
Yeah.
No, cats have feelings too.
All right. So.
All right. Well, this has been fun. Do you have any more comments to lay down?
No, I think I'm good. So,
all right. Well,
thanks for inviting me out here, and.
Yeah, definitely. We had a fun talk.
Yeah.
I would like to have you on at some point in the future with some other movie lovers that I know.
Okay.
Because you're really easy to get into a movie conversation with.
Well, movie nerd.
Yeah, I know. We kind of just went off. Like, I think with you, we had the least amount of awkward pauses in the podcast.
Well, that's good.
So congratulations,
with a total viewership of 2.
Yeah, I feel like we really got somewhere with this. Anyways, no, I feel like we really got somewhere with this. So this was fun.
All right.
All right. Peace out.
Peace.